As the second trial erupts, the arena becomes a literal bloodbath. Most candidates drown in pure terror, but Yoon Seol remains ice cold. He leans against the wall, watching the carnage with the detached gaze of a mortician. Then comes the ultimate twist. Everyone expects the powerhouse Neung Woogang to absolutely shred Yoon Seol into ribbons. Woogang unleashes a hurricane of lethal steel, but Yoon Seol dances through the storm, having already deciphered his enemy's rhythm. By analyzing Woogang's previous victims, Yoon Seol baits him into a blind rage, forcing a desperate final lunge. Targeted at his vitals, Yoon Seol slips the strike in a heartbeat, driving his blade deep into the gap. He pierces the exact pressure point his grandfather taught him. Speaking of the old man who raised him, Grandpa found him abandoned in a frozen wasteland, naming him Yoon Seol. Under his tutelage, the boy mastered the grim art of the Undertaker. Since his mentor was a seasoned mortician, young Yoon Seol once believed their late-night lessons were just a twisted game. He never realized that night would be their final goodbye, finding the old man blinded and broken. His arms were severed, victims of a shadow known as the demonic blade Bu Jianyang, who accused him of ultimate betrayal. The killer claimed hell was the only home left for a traitor. Now Yoon Seol listens to his grandfather's dying breath. The old man begs him to abandon vengeance and find happiness, but destiny has a much darker path in mind. Yoon Seol rejects that peaceful life. Examining the corpse, he notes the clinical precision of the limb-severing strikes. The executioner utilized a rare downward cleavage technique, a move so unique it is practically a signature. Mid-swing, the trajectory shifted to blind the victim, a cruel hallmark of the most twisted demonic martial arts. Only the infamous Tianzu Yuga style leaves such jagged wounds. Then Yoon Seol inspects his grandfather's scarred back. 93 puncture wounds from hidden projectiles mar his skin, likely fired from a mechanism, mimicking a rain of falling petals. Furthermore, the telltale discoloration of the nails and tongue points to something even more sinister. Only a forbidden flesh-rotting toxin could cause such a gruesome systemic breakdown of the blood and organs. Connecting these lethal breadcrumbs, Yoon Seol narrows his list of targets. He will hunt this monster to the ends of the earth. Driven by cold fury, Yoon Seol begins his crusade, preparing to sign a pact that will change everything. An impatient instructor barks at him to hurry with the stamp, but Yoon Seol silences the man with a single brutal act. He shreds his own thumb, stamping the contract in crimson lifeblood. Vengeance is now the only oxygen he breathes. Ever since the light left his grandfather's eyes, he has walked a path paved with thorns and shadow. This tournament isn't just a contest. It is the first blood-soaked step toward his ultimate retribution in the Murim. The Murim is a powder keg balanced between the righteous Murim alliance and the darker forces of the underworld. On the flip side lies the Demon Palace, a sanctuary for those who worship raw absolute power over empty morals. While a fragile peace once held, the orthodox sects grew greedy, thirsting for total dominance over the realm. They unleashed the 18 martial masters, self-proclaimed champions of the greater good, to tip the scales of war. Feeling the noose tighten, the Demon Palace realizes it is time to awaken their own sleeping giants. Their countermove, the creation of the 10 Demon Masters, a squad of elite monsters forged in the fires of hell. They are scouting 10 lethal prodigies to inherit the most forbidden techniques in the demonic arsenal. The recruitment rules are simple. Your past is irrelevant. All that matters is if you can survive the slaughter. This call for chaos draws thousands of desperate warriors to their gates, including our silent protagonist, Yoon Seol. Standing amidst a sea of aspiring killers, Yoon Seol senses the suffocating bloodlust radiating from the crowd. His instincts scream that the monster who butchered his family is lurking somewhere within these dark ranks. To slay a god-tier assassin, Yoon Seol knows he must evolve into something far more terrifying than a mere human. He is locked in on becoming one of the 10 demon masters, hungering for the power to finally face his nemesis. As he steels his resolve, a mountain of a man steps forward to address the potential recruits. This intimidating figure reveals himself as the legendary head instructor Hyuk Ryan Yong, commanding instant respect. The crowd gasps in awe. This man is a living myth whose reputation for brutality precedes him. Hyuk makes it clear they aren't here for games. They are here to find the absolute monsters among men. Only the survivors who crawl through his hellish trials will earn the right to even dream of demonic mastery. For the opening gambit, the Demon Palace elites will strip away their masks to judge their raw physical potential. The news hits like a lead weight, and the recruits begin to hiss unimpressed by the lack of a real challenge. Hungry for a bloodbath, the martial masters coldly brush off their complaints as the atmosphere thickens with tension. The elders begin their heartless appraisal, weeding out the weak from the worthy. Those with massive muscular builds, however, smirk with arrogance, realizing their brute strength is a golden ticket to the next round. Then, an instructor, Jin-gak, corners Eun-so for an evaluation. One touch is all it takes for the master to write Eun-so's obituary. He questions why this weakling even showed up, but then he feels it a bone-chilling, terrifying, murderous aura radiating from Eun-so's core. Despite the shock, Jingak knows letting him pass would be a fatal mistake. He slams the door on the boy's progress, but Yunseo doesn't even flinch at the cold rejection. He knew his frail frame wouldn't make the cut. After all, his entire existence had been spent tending to rotting corpses. Yet deep down, Yunseo is certain this game is far from over. The first trial concludes, but the silence is shattered by a recruit's explosive rage, screaming about the blatant unfairness. He demands to know why they even bother, if only physical foundation matters. Hyuk's voice cuts through the noise, calling out the brat's utter ignorance with a sharp glare. He declares that raw physical aptitude is the bedrock of martial mastery. Hyuk mocks the boy for stumbling at the very first hurdle despite the open invitation. But the recruit doubles down, insisting they deserve a fair shot, and that's when Hyuk's grin turns sinister. He announces the second trial will favor those who possess the spirit to overcome their poor physical state. Without missing a beat, Hyuk triggers the start of the next phase. To everyone's shock, it's a brutal free-for-all, where only a single survivor will remain standing. Most of the recruits are paralyzed by the news, but the angry brat from before instantly enters predator mode. With a license to kill, he zeroes in on his first prey, and his eyes land directly on Yunseo. He snatches a spear, launching it toward Yunseo with enough lethal force to punch a ticket to the underworld. The weapon streaks through the air, but the target wasn't Yunseo at all. It skewers a boy in red, standing nearby the attacker's true rival. The victim lets out a blood-curdling shriek as he collapses, coughing up his life's blood before going cold. Warm crimson splatters across Yunseo's face. Staring at the body, soaking in a growing pool of gore, Yunseo is struck by the suddenness of death. One spear throw, one life gone. In a single look, Yunseo deconstructs the mechanics of the kill. The blade pierced the heart, sliding perfectly between the ribs, proving the attacker Wun Chung possesses terrifying precision. Wun Chung immediately begins to gloat over his first confirmed kill. Watching from the sidelines, Hyuk notes Wun Chung's decisiveness, but sighs at his lack of tactical foresight. He's thoroughly unimpressed, branding the entire group as idiots. Jingak nods, knowing that painting a bullseye on your back is a rookie mistake. It's a death sentence in a place like this. Still, the instructors hope this bloodshed forces the rest to wake up to the lethal reality. Suddenly, pure carnage explodes, transforming the arena into a literal meat grinder. Fresh recruits, unseasoned by death, descend into blind panic. Yet one boy catches the master's eyes. He's leaning against the wall, eerily detached from the surrounding mayhem. Yunseo stands there calm and collected as the world burns around him. This sight forces the masters to rethink their all-fools verdict. Yunseo watches the idiots, drowning in their own terror. The mission wasn't to slaughter, it was to survive. Endurance is the key, not body count. Yunseo realizes that cold logic is his only shield against the madness. He kneels, examining the fresh corpses to analyze the killing blows. Mid-inspection, a boy armed with a projectile spots Yunseo's strange behavior. He realizes Yunseo is just spectating the carnage while examining the wounds to map out enemy techniques. Enraged by the boy's calmness, he launches his weapon. It whistles past Yunseo's skull, smashing the wooden box on his back to splinters. The attacker sneers, mocking the useless luggage Yunseo was hauling. Since he's a monk, that shattered chest actually held precious birthday treasures from his grandfather. Destroying it was a fatal mistake. Within the debris lay a dagger, but the attacker just sneered. He mocks Yunseo's tiny blade, completely underestimating him. But while he's running his mouth, that mysterious elite teleports behind him, ending his life instantly. He then turns to Yunseo with a smirk. No thanks needed, he boasts, claiming Yunseo was merely a perfect meat shield to distract his prey. Yunseo remains unfazed, totally ghosting the guy. The elite notes Yunseo lacks any visible martial prowess. Tagging him as easy pickings, he focuses on Yunseo, unaware an assassin is lunging from the shadows. Without even looking, he carves through the threat like he has a sixth sense. Hyuk demands answers about this monster. That blade is the legendary extermination sword. Why on earth would he possess such a terrifying relic? It's the Black Soul's legacy, the world's ultimate wandering master. Jingak identifies the swordsman as Wugong. Word is, he unearthed the Black Soul's hidden scrolls alongside that cursed steel. It seems Wugong mastered those forbidden techniques, becoming the Black Soul's only true successor. Despite his frail frame, he's the undisputed favorite here. Simply put, no one else even breathes the same air in terms of power. Yet Jingak suspects an X-factor might flip the script once this bloodbath finally reaches its peak. Only Wugong and Yunseo remain. Wugong's jaw drops. How did this weakling survive until the final showdown? He laughs, claiming Yunseo's head is his ticket to becoming one of the legendary 10 demon masters. He's itching for the kill. Even facing the most dangerous predator in this arena, Yunseo doesn't flinch. His face remains a mask of icy calm despite the overwhelming pressure. Why? Because he's already spotted the flaw. Yunseo unsheathes his dagger ready to strike. He actually believes he can win. Wugong scoffs, deciding to toy with him by unleashing a flurry of strikes. A hurricane of steel descends, yet Yun-So dances through the blades, evading every lethal arc. He escapes without a scratch. Watching from the shadows, Hyuk and Jin-Gok are absolutely stunned. It looks like a one-sided beatdown, but Yun-So is micro-adjusting his body to dodge every fatal blow. He's surviving by a hair. Jin-Gok realizes Yun-So memorized Wugong's patterns just by studying the fallen bodies. Such god-tier observation is terrifying. Sensing his opening, Yun-So decides to get under Wugong's skin. "Your swordsmanship is garbage," he spits. "All these scratches, and you still haven't landed a real hit." The taunt hits deep, and Jin-Gok notices, but he fears one mistake could end it all. Can he really land the killing blow? The bait works. Wugong loses his cool, exploding in a blind rage. He lunges forward, desperate to silence the brat once and for all. As Wugong charges in, Yun-So prepares for his one and only shot, utilizing every gruesome detail he learned from those corpses. He knows Wugong's muscle memory forces him to aim straight for the heart or the cranium. With the trap set, Yun-So waits. The instant the blade whistles toward his face, he ducks low, letting the steel sail overhead. Wugong is now wide open, a fatal defensive lapse. Years ago, his grandpa whispered secrets about a hidden lethal point in the neck of every master. A single precise strike from even a kid can drop a titan if they hit that specific acupoint. That's the target. Wugong, blinded by fury, has literally served his jugular on a silver platter. Before he can blink, the dagger bites deep. Wugong gasps as Yun-So's blade skewing his throat. Blood sprays the arena as the favorite collapses into the dirt. Yun-So stands alone, the lone survivor. The observers are speechless. There's the variable the underdog just slaughtered the invincible monster. Hyuk's disappointed. He expected more from the Black Soul's heir than a pathetic death like this. Regardless of his feelings, Hyuk officially crowns Yun-So the victor of the second trial. Suddenly, Yun-So is drifting in a white void. He spots his grandfather and sprints toward him, overjoyed. His smile vanishes. His granddad turns around, but where his eyes should be, there's only darkness. "I can't see you," he screams. The nightmare shatters as Yun-So jolts awake, gasping for air. He's on a ship, the swaying waves grounding him. The massive blood loss finally took its toll. A chilling realization hit him. His body was a map of fatal wounds, yet he felt absolutely no pain. A high-level physician from the demonic palace must have pulled his soul back from the afterlife. Scanning the deck, he saw that every survivor looked like a lethal weapon. Then it finally clicked. These were the cold-blooded victors of the first trial. Moments later, the overhead hatch screeched open. Jin-Gok loomed over them, barking orders to disembark. They had finally reached their nightmare destination. This was the infamous Hell Island. Jin-Gok roared at the candidates, commanding them to follow his lead. He led them to a cluster of grim caves meant for living. "Strip," he ordered, "discard your past." They were told to suit up in the provided uniforms and blades before emerging from their stone cells. Candidates were free to claim any cave they liked. Yun-So's sharp eyes immediately locked onto a target. He spotted a prime location while the other highborn brats began bickering over status and spots. Two idiots nearly came to blows over one cave until a third party intervened to break them up. The peacemaker urged them to stop the pointless drama. Deep down, Yun-So just felt a dark amusement. He mocked them internally. None of these fools understood the true terrifying purpose of the second trial. Their guards were completely down. Yun-So noticed their silk robes. These were the spoiled heirs of elite clans. These prestigious clan members were in for a shock. The second trial was designed as a systematic cull. It was an avenue to weed out the weaklings who were easy to kill. Yun-So stood back, calculating. Suddenly, Jin-Gok appeared behind him, mocking his hesitation. He called Yun-So sluggish for not picking yet. It turns out Jin-Gok had been eyeing the boy since the last trial, curious about his next move. He pressured him to choose quickly. Yun-So calmly pointed toward a cramped hole with a tiny entrance. Thick mud oozed from the opening. Another candidate laughed, sneering that the filthy hole suited a lowly peasant. However, Jin-Gok was secretly floored. He realized Yun-So was a tactical genius for making that choice. The entrance was narrow, but the interior was massive, perfect for secret training without any prying eyes. That tiny opening was a natural fortress against intruders, and the mud kept most people far away. Jin-Gok smirked. The kid had incredible intuition. Soon the candidates re-emerged, all draped in midnight black. They gathered to hear Jin-Gok's final briefing. Hell Island was home to 10 legendary martial arts facilities. Each building housed a unique forbidden art of the demonic sect that they were allowed to master. They could try to learn everything or focus their energy on a single, devastating path to power. There were no rules and no schedules. They could train, sleep, or play. Their fate was their own. Yun-So's skin crawled. After the bloodbath of the previous trial, this sudden freedom felt like a trap. He didn't buy the relaxed vibe for a second. Meanwhile, the others were already debating their first move. Most of the pack swarmed toward the fire rain sword style, convinced it was the ultimate power move. Yonseo watched the crowd sprint toward the Fire Rain Pavilion, the most prestigious sect on the island. Fire Rain was legendary, sure, but Yonseo knew it wasn't for him. He was a complete martial novice. He needed a style that suited a beginner. His feet led him toward the Wandering Beast Pavilion instead. The building looked like a crumbling ruin. Over the years, this sect had completely fallen from grace. It barely held its status among the 10 sects, surviving only on the echoes of its ancient history. Despite the decay, it had produced monsters in the past. Yonseo remembered his grandfather's cryptic warnings. Suddenly, the earth beneath him began to churn. Before he could react, a head burst from the soil. The man rasped, asking if he actually had the guts to aim for the title of Demon Master. This was Sawu, the eccentric master of the Wandering Beast. Yonseo composed himself and stood his ground. He looked Sawu in the eye and declared his intent to master the primal Wandering Beast arts. Sawu gave him a cold evaluating stare, clearly unimpressed by the boy's thin and fragile frame. "Get lost," Sawu spat. He had zero intention of teaching a weakling who didn't look the part. He warned Yonseo that he was too fragile and would likely die during the brutal training sessions. But Yonseo didn't flinch. He told Sawu that this style was his only chance to survive anything. Sawu is visibly shaken. How could this kid possibly know about the wandering arts when they're practically extinct? He warns Yonseo that this path is a literal nightmare, a challenge that has broken even the most legendary geniuses. The training, he explains, requires a complete and agonizing modification of the human body from the inside out. From Sawu's perspective, Yonseo is a walking corpse who won't survive a single day of this hellish regimen. He tells him to beat it, but Yonseo pulls a total pro-gamer move, bowing deep and thanking his new master. For supposedly agreeing to train him, Sawu just stares, realizing he's dealing with a certified high-tier lunatic. Cornered by the kid's sheer audacity, Sawu finally caves. But he makes it clear, this is strictly Demon Palace business. Emerging from his underground sanctuary, he commands respect. "From this moment on, you will address me as Master Sawu." Yonseo tries to introduce himself, but Sawu shuts him down instantly. "To me, you're just trainee number 1. Without a second of hesitation, Sawu kicks things off, twisting his fingers into a bizarre and ancient mystical seal. A violent shockwave slams into Yonseo, and in a heartbeat, his world is swallowed by an absolute terrifying darkness. Before the panic can set in, Sawu's voice cuts through the void. "Relax, kid. Your sight is only temporarily sealed." Using a forbidden sect technique, Sawu explains that losing his eyes is the first step of the Wandering Beast path. It's the core of their sect, yet Yonseo is completely lost. Sawu clarifies the brutal logic behind the move. The Wandering Beast path is designed to sharpen every remaining sense until his reflexes mirror those of a predator. Unlike generic styles, their martial arts are fluid, evolving and changing based on the soul of the practitioner. That's why even this basic technique is pure hell. Very few have the mental fortitude to actually master it. But if he survives the trial, he'll walk away with the supernatural lethal instincts of a true wandering beast. Sawu scoffs, noting that most candidates die long before reaching this level. "I'll be back in an hour," he mocks. "Try not to be useless by the time I return." With that, he vanishes, leaving Yonseo alone in the dark. Yonseo quickly realizes his mistake. He expected his other senses to magically level up the moment he went blind. But there's only silence. No superhero hearing, no heightened smell. And 60 minutes suddenly feels like a goddamn eternity. He has to adapt, and he has to do it now. Time is a luxury he doesn't have in this competition. If an assassin jumps him in this state, he's literal fodder. He'll be dead before he even hears the blade. He imagines a blade at his throat, and the sudden spike of adrenaline forces him to leap into the air. But he misses his mark and crashes down. Without his eyes, his balance is trash. He needs to fix this. An hour later, Sawu returns, fully expecting to see Yonseo curled in a ball, trembling with pathetic blind fear. Instead, his jaw drops. Yonseo is actively leaping and navigating the terrain with a strange rhythmic intensity. He's shadowboxing a phantom enemy. By imagining a constant threat, the kid is forcing his instincts to evolve rapidly. Still, Sawu plays it cool. He draws his steel, challenging the kid to dodge a blade that he can't see. 3 days of absolute carnage follow. Yonseo is a walking bruise, constantly being pummeled into the dirt by Sawu. Sawu is genuinely stunned. Most people would have quit or complained, but Yonseo just keeps coming back for more. Eventually, Sawu breaks the silence. "Why the hell aren't you questioning me? Don't you think this is all pointless?" Yonseo rasps out his answer. "You said your art is about enlightenment. Every blow has a reason behind it." He trusts the process, bruises and all. That level of conviction actually earns him a rare spark of respect. "You're smarter than you look," Sawu grunts. "But enough talk. Let's see if you've actually learned a damn thing." Sawu lunges like a lightning strike, but this time the air ripples. Yonseo can actually feel the shift in pressure. He still can't see, and dodging is out of the question. He's left with one desperate high-stakes option. He has to tank the hit. At the very last microsecond, Yonseo thrusts his sword upward to meet the strike. Clang. The impact rings out. Sawu is shocked to his core. The kid actually managed to read his movement. 3 days. It only took him 3 days to pull off the impossible. Even so, the force sends him flying. Yunseo hits the ground hard, but Sawu just tosses a bamboo flask at his face. Drink. Now. Expecting water, Yunseo gulps it down only to realize the liquid is burning with an ancient celestial heat. Raw energy explodes through his system, instantly mending his broken muscles and replenishing his drained vitality. It turns out Sawu just handed him his most prized possession, the legendary spring spiritual water, saved for a lifetime. He didn't feel like he'd wasted a second. He was convinced he'd just stumbled upon a literal once-in-a-century prodigy. This was the moment he'd been manifesting his whole life. Once his energy recovered, the grueling training resumed immediately. They clashed with explosive intensity. But after minutes of exchanging blows, Sawu suddenly halted his assault and broke into hysterical laughter. He'd finally discovered his missing piece. Then, in a flash of clarity, Yunseol realized his vision had completely returned. Speaking with pure sincerity, Sawu pleaded with him to drop his dream of joining the 10 demon masters. He wanted him as an official sect disciple, instead, promising to mold him into one of the top 10 elites. Within 10 years, he'd become a legendary powerhouse of the demonic faction. Hearing such a life-changing proposal, Yunseol froze. The offer was incredibly tempting, especially since Sawu seemed dead serious. But then a dark memory resurfaced. His grandfather's murderer was a top-tier warrior. Simply being strong wouldn't be enough to satisfy his burning thirst for revenge. Relying solely on the Wandering Beast Pavilion's arts felt insufficient, so he respectfully declined the generous offer. He reaffirmed his goal of becoming a demon master. Sawu warned him that mastering all 10 demonic arts was a pipe dream. Even the legendary Great Heavenly Demon Emperor, despite his god-tier talent, found such a feat absolutely impossible. When forging unique arts, Sawu explained that every style must perfectly align with a specific physique and constitution. Energy types vary wildly. Yunseol noted that even the most gifted geniuses could only master 2 or 3 styles. That's why specializing in a single art is the fastest path to demonic supremacy. Despite Sawu's intense persuasion, however, Yunseol didn't budge an inch. Disappointed but understanding, Sawu finally decided to drop the subject and back off. Instead, he offered to pass down a different secret technique, catching Yunseol completely off guard. He'd only scratched the surface of the Wandering Beast sect's basics when Sawu spoke up. He revealed that their secret arts aren't taught through boring theory or rigid steps. Furthermore, Sawu explained he'd actually been training in the wild beast path all along. Suddenly, a realization hit Yunseol. Every single brutal strike Sawu had unleashed was actually a high-level form of that very path. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Yunseol bowed deeply, offering his sincere thanks. Sawu told him to cut the sentimental stuff. He claimed he was just following the Demon Palace's orders, but Yunseol vowed never to forget his kindness. The master even gifted him rare elixirs, yet Sawu insisted on moving on, citing the harsh reality of Jianghu. He advised that letting go of both favors and grudges was the best way to survive. With their business concluded, Yunseol performed a final, respectful kowtow before departing. Sawu watched him go, feeling a profound sense of awe. He wondered how such a hidden gem even existed. Meanwhile, trekking through the woods, Yunseol noticed something incredible. He could sense every tiny movement in the forest. Was this the true power of the wild beast path? The sensory overload was draining his stamina fast. He needed to find a way to control this overwhelming input. To avoid constant exhaustion, he focused on suppressing his hyper-heightened senses to a manageable level. Once successful, the contrast between normal reality and his enhanced perception was like night and day. Compared to that sharp awareness, everything felt dull. Pulling out his map, Yunseol scouted his next destination. He realized time was ticking on his training window. After some serious deliberation, he made a bold choice. He decided to seek the sect whose founder challenged the Great Heavenly Demon Emperor 700 years ago. This legend founded the Fire Rain Sword Sect. With the clock winding down, Yunseol came to a realization. Aiming for the absolute strongest of the 10 sects was his only play. Reaching the facility, its prestige was undeniable. It felt far more elite than the Wandering Beast Pavilion. He knocked, prompting the instructor inside to grow curious. Instructor Jingak swung the door open, his eyes widening in total disbelief at the sight of Yunseol. Bowing respectfully, Yunseol declared his intent to master the Fire Rain sword arts. But even he was stunned to find that Jingak was a true martial master. Motioning him forward, Jingak ordered him to follow. He mentioned that the earlier candidates had already crushed the elementary trial and moved toward the next stage. They were already tackling the intermediate trials. The system was split into 3 tiers: elementary, intermediate, and advanced. Then Jingak questioned why he was only just showing his face at the Fire Rain sect. 2 weeks had passed. Yunseol admitted he'd been busy training under the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Jingak then casually inquired if he had mastered the notorious Wild Beast Path. Unsu drops the truth bomb, leaving Jingak reeling. Mastering the Wild Beast Path. It seemed impossible. 2 weeks was an insane timeline. Even as a self-proclaimed genius, Jin-gok figured Sahu just gave up. Assuming the kid was a lost cause, Jin-gok locks in as they enter the training hall. He steps up, revealing his role as the gatekeeper for the beginner trials. "Listen, kid," Jin-gok begins. "Are you dead set on Fire Rain? Because honestly, you would fit in much better elsewhere." Yoon-soo respects the advice but stands his ground. He is only here for one legacy, the legendary Fire Rain sword sect. Hearing this, Jin-gok stomps his foot, shattering the silence. A manual materializes instantly. "This is it," Jin-gok declares. "The entry-level guide to our core techniques, the 13 forms of Fire Rain." He tells the boy to study, but Yoon-soo just blinks. To him, it is just a bunch of random scribbles. He has zero clue where to start. Jin-gok's jaw drops. "Wait. Can you even decipher a martial arts manual at all?" he demands. Then comes the real kicker. Yoon-soo admits he can't. Before this very competition, he had never even touched a blade. The revelation sends a cold shiver down Jin-gok's spine. "You are serious," Jin-gok gasps. Yoon-soo nods. He is a total blank slate in martial arts. But Jin-gok isn't annoyed. He is hyped. He's seen what this kid can do with zero training. If he gets the right guidance, he will be a monster. "Can you at least read the text?" Even if the diagrams make no sense, Yoon-soo nods and begins reciting the ancient script. It is the foundational theory. Yoon-soo tries to mimic the movements described in the text, but his form is absolute garbage. Jin-gok watches in horror, clutching his head in disbelief. He is teaching basic footwork in a place meant for choosing the next demon master. The irony is killing him. Jin-gok steps in, manually adjusting Yoon-soo's stiff limbs into the right stance. "Loosen up. Don't let your core lock up." Like a sponge, Yoon-soo corrects his posture instantly. No back and forth, no struggle. The kid just gets it. With the foundation finally set, Jin-gok decides it is time. "Let's dive into the Fire Rain 13 forms. No more waiting." He tosses Yoon-soo a blade, demonstrating the fluid, precise motions required for the sect's signature style. Like a shadow, Yoon-soo mirrors every move perfectly. Jin-gok stands there absolutely floored by the display. There is no denying it anymore. This kid is a once-in-a-century talent. Training continues until sunset. "Now visualize a foe," Jin-gok commands. "Unleash the forms." Yoon-soo pauses, tilted his head in confusion. "A fake enemy?" he asks. Jin-gok explains that this is the final hurdle for the beginner hall. To reach the intermediate level, he must manifest true sword intent within his basic strikes. This is it. His first real shot at proving his worth. He isn't going to waste it. He needs to make an impression now. He closes his eyes and centers his breathing, and sees the face of the monster who murdered his grandfather. With a cold glare he draws. He explodes into the first form, a whirlwind of lethal precision and raw fury. Jin-gok's breath hitches. The boy moves like a god of war. As Yoon-soo flows through the sequence, Jin-gok realizes something is wrong. The forms are changing. They are being warped into something else. Usually Fire Rain is fluid and elegant, but Yoon-soo's strikes are jagged, sharp, and terrifyingly efficient. His mind reels, altering fundamental techniques. That is a feat only a grandmaster should be capable of. The air turns icy. Every swing is now drenched in a blood-curdling, heavy-killing intent. It is as if he's facing a mortal enemy. Jin-gok can't believe an orthodox style is being twisted. He is dismantling the sect's legacy with ease. What kind of life has this kid lived? Even Yoon-soo feels it. The Fire Rain forms are bending under his sheer wild will. Is the wild beast path taking over, he thinks. He wants to merge the two fighting styles. But doing that would create a new, unrecognizable art. It wouldn't be the Fire Rain anymore. Realizing he needs to pass, he quickly recalibrates, forcing his sword back into the natural rhythm. The 13 forms of Fire Rain ignite as he radiates a more lethal aura than ever. He visualizes his prey. Pure rage explodes from his blade. Watching in awe, Jin-gok is forced to acknowledge the terrifying truth. Unseo is a blur of god-tier speed. Closing in, he descends into a deep trance of pure combat. Treating the Phantom as a real foe, he realizes he cannot let his mark slip away. Because of this, he burns through every remaining technique. Unseo unleashes a storm of devastating high-stakes slashes to finish it. Seeking a total takedown, the sheer force breaks his posture, making him lose his footing and grip. Jin-gok witnesses the defeat, but wears a look of genuine respect. Unseo stands there, completely stunned. The words you passed echo in his ears. Jin-gok reveals the hidden objective behind the trial. It was about sword mastery and applying the 13 forms under pressure. Jin-gok helps him retrieve his blade. He confirms that every benchmark was shattered. Jin-gok drops a major bombshell of praise on him. His Fire Rain style is elite tier. Jin-gok orders him to level up to the intermediate chamber immediately. Unseo feels a surge of gratitude, knowing he was likely a total headache to train. Turning a total rookie into a warrior was no easy feat. Unseo offers a deep, respectful bow. He voices his thanks for the guidance. Jin-gok encourages the grind but warns of a chilling presence. A dark, murderous aura bled from his sword. Jingok begs him not to lose his soul to it. That bloodlust is a double-edged sword. As they part, the heavy truth finally sinks in for Jingok. Unseo mastered the wild beast path in a mere 14 days. His growth rate is absolutely cracked. This prodigy is advancing to the next level at a pace that defies all logic and expectation. Jingok had his doubts about the kid potential, but their duel together changed his mind forever. Now he is 100% sure. He knows the next instructor is in for a shock. Qian Wugang will definitely be obsessed with this monster. Unseo steps into the intermediate chamber, but there is zero hospitality here. The instructor barked at him to beat it since space is limited. Qian gives him the cold shoulder, totally unimpressed by a simple elementary graduate like him. He claims Unseo is a lost cause who lacks the raw talent for this elite level. Defending himself, Unseo explains his tardiness was due to intense, specialized grind time. He mentions the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Qian remains a hater, convinced it was all for nothing. He assumes the kid just barely survived the beast training, but a pass is still a pass. Reluctantly, Qian orders him to sit with the others before resuming his elite lecture. He announces the Fire Rain Thundering Sword, a style built on lightning-fast, lethal movements. One wrong move with a weak grip, and they will end up slicing themselves open. This thundering style is a nightmare to master, but it is a mandatory part of their growth. It is a fundamental art designed to hone their edge, not just to score a win. He summons Baek Hansong for a live trial and tells him to choose a victim for the duel. With a villainous smirk, Baek asks for total freedom in his choice. Qian agrees to the terms. Baek locks onto Unseo, singling him out. Even Qian hesitates at the obvious mismatch. Baek throws the instructor words back at him. Qian still tries to block the unfair duel. He questions the logic of bullying a newcomer and pushes Baek to pick a real challenge. Suddenly, Unseo interrupts coolly, accepting the challenge. The entire room goes silent with shock. He casually mentions that his foundations were built by Jingok himself. Unseo states. He claims live combat is the ultimate teacher. Qian thinks the kid is just being stubborn and arrogant. But he is not going to stop the madness. Qian gives the green light for the match. He tells them to aim for the advanced tier. Meanwhile, Baek feels like he hit the jackpot. He has a fresh rookie to humiliate. Worse, he is secretly plotting to end the kid life. He wants to use Unseo as a stepping stone to flex his power. They both grab practice swords. As they square up, Baek mocks his courage, claiming that guts won't save him from reality. To survive in the Murim, Baek lunges at Unseo, but the boy effortlessly dances out of harm's way. Baek is impressed but thinks the kid is just lucky. He ramps up the intensity, forcing Unseo to finally draw steel and parry. As their blades scream against each other, Baek realizes his opponent is a total rookie, fueling his sadistic joy. He starts toying with Unseo, even dropping the thundering sword technique, yet the kid remains icy calm, evading every lethal strike. Frustration boils over in Baek, and instructor Qian clocks it immediately. It is clear Baek is lacking, while Unseo maneuvers as if he is reading Baek moves. This realization hits Qian like a truck. Has this kid actually mastered the wild beast path? As a seasoned martial artist, he knows how insane that is. It might be called a basic skill, but only true masters can actually pull it off. Baek refuses to accept that Unseo learned a legendary feat in just 2 weeks. Suddenly, Qian raises the stakes, barking that this duel is about testing their raw reflexes and combat prowess, not just playing tag. Taking the hint, Unseo's aura shifts. He goes on the offensive with the Fire Rain 13 forms. Baek is not sweating it though. The technique looks slightly off, missing the standard polish of the 13 forms. He is cocky enough to think he can dodge, with his eyes closed. But reality hits hard when the strike arrives with bone-crushing force, leaving him scrambling to survive. Questions race through Baek's head. Is this kid using a modified style just to troll him, or is Unseo trying to flex for the instructor and secure a fast track to the advanced chamber? Terrified of being humiliated, Baek gets desperate and taps into a forbidden art, the Asura sword style. He unleashes the blood-shattering strike to end the kid in one heartbeat. This move is the deadliest secret of the Asura sword sect. Since Qian had not banned any specific styles, he is forced to let the carnage unfold. Suddenly, Qian notices that despite the danger, Unseo has not lost his footing for a single second. The impossible thought of the wild beast path flashes in his mind again, even if he still wants to deny it. Unseo keeps weaving through the chaos, pushing Baek to use his ultimate trump card, the Bloody Wind Warping Moon. Even Qian is stunned, watching in pure horror as Baek catapults himself into the air toward his target. It all happens in a blur. By the time the dust settles, Unseo's blade is buried deep in Baek's chest. Using the Fire Rain 13th form, Unseo looks like a cold-blooded killer as he sheathes his steel. Baek spits out a mouthful of crimson before hitting the dirt dead on arrival. The crowd is paralyzed. With pure terror, unable to process that Baek was just deleted from existence, Unseo calmly walks off, while Qian confirms the kill. It was a perfect strike to a vital organ. Bake is gone. Cheon stares at the boy, asking if he was always a secret disciple of the Wandering Night Pavilion, but Yunsol just shakes his head. Cheon demands to know if he really mastered the wild beast path in only 2 weeks. Yunsol simply shrugs, claiming he only picked up the basics of the style. Cheon gives a disgusted smirk. What he just saw was anything but basic. He taunts the boy, asking if lying was also part of his training. Yoon Seol tries to explain, but Cheon shuts him down, ordering him to go clean up the mess he made. The other candidates start whispering, calling it murder, and demanding justice for a sparring match gone wrong. They expect a heavy punishment, but Cheon is not having any of it. He reminds the soft recruits that this is not a playground. It is Hell Island. He tells them straight up that if they use a lethal technique with the intent to kill, they better be ready to face the same fate. With that chilling lesson, training resumes as if nothing happened. The candidates continue their brutal sparring, but Cheon immediately tosses the losers out. He tells them they failed the test and are free to find a weaker sect because their journey with Fire Rain is over. Cheon shuts the door on them, 0 second chances. Passing the first trial was just a fluke of fitness. To wield the Fire Rain sword, you need raw potential that shatters every limit to reach the peak. Since they lacked that it factor, they're out. The room clears, but Yunsol remains in the hall. Cheon spots the lingering boy and asks why he hasn't moved a muscle yet. Clueless Yunseol asks if he's required to leave too. Chon confirms his victory. He's earned the right to head to the advanced chamber, but Seol drops a bombshell. He'd rather stay put in the intermediate ranks. Cheon is completely baffled by this choice. Seol explains he's only mastered the basic forms and hasn't truly gained anything from this level yet. Chon's shook Seol used the wild beast path to read Birok's moves with ease. Yet he claims he's learned nothing. Unapologetic Yoon Seol stands his ground with stubborn determination. Seeing no quit in him, Cheon has no choice but to agree to his request. He'll teach him the Fire Rain Thundering Sword, the ultimate upgrade of his current style. However, Chon warns that he despises posers who play tricks just to look impressive. He drops a lethal warning he'll personally take Seol's head if he uses any other style. 4 days of brutal high-intensity training follow, as Seol pushes his body to the brink. Chon dissects every move and confirms that the kid is a total rookie in fundamentals. He truly lacks the basic building blocks of swordsmanship despite his current power level, yet his laser focus and absolute grit are unlike anything Cheon has ever seen before. Seol fights like a man possessed, as if failing to master martial arts means certain death. It finally clicks. That's how he mastered the beast path in a mere fortnight. To keep things spicy, Seol is already swinging the thundering sword with terrifying learning speed. The kid is grinding as usual when Cheon suddenly calls a halt to the session. He tells Seol he's finally grasped the core principles of the Fire Rain Thundering Sword. Seol is skeptical, so Cheon explains the style relies on body-twisting momentum to counter multiple strikes. These moves aren't just for show, but they aren't meant for mindless slaughter either. Cheon noticed Seol is executing every technique with terrifying killing intent, as if hunting prey. Seol is genuinely confused. Isn't the whole point of a sword to end a life in battle? Cheon admits bloodlust works for demons, but reaching a higher realm requires abandoning that rage. The Fire Rain sword must drop the killing aspect to achieve true martial perfection. Ditch the murderous vibes, Cheon warns, or your own martial arts will eventually destroy you. It finally dawns on Seol Chon is echoing the exact warning Jin Gak gave him earlier. Cheon confesses his own dark past. He lived for the kill, slaughtering anyone in his way. But that bloodlust cost him his honor, causing his martial prowess to come crumbling down. Techniques meant only for killing are an illusion of power that traps a swordsman. They are actually a massive obstacle on the true path to the peak of swordsmanship. Like a father guiding his son, Cheon tells Seol he must let go of his hate. Hearing this, Seol remembers his grandfather's words about the heavy burden of the blade. A sword is stained with misery and misfortune, his gramps had warned him long ago. That's exactly why the warriors of the Muram refuse to speak of their dark pasts. Seol asks why Cheon is sharing this. Cheon wants him to know he's been there too. When Seol reveals his name, it hits Cheon like a bolt. This is the survivor Jin Gak mentioned. Cheon realizes the kid is facing a monumental problem despite his natural talent. He lacks the basic foundation of martial arts that every other disciple possesses. His competitors have been training since they were kids, creating a massive skill gap. To close this divide, he must master the basic martial arts with lightning speed. To master the Fire Rain sword, the foundation must be absolute. Cheon decides it's time to pass on his secret weapon, the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique. It's a monstrous style he forged himself, but the risk is insane. Cheon's own hands are mangled ruins, a brutal reminder of the price paid for failing to tame this power. This forbidden art is pure poison. One wrong move and Yoon Seol's nerves will literally fry inside his arms. Instead of ascending, he'd end up a useless cripple, rotting away while the advanced chamber remains a dream. Despite the lethal warning, Yoon Seol doesn't even flinch. He's already locked in and ready for the hell ahead. His soul is already on the altar. Losing his limbs is a small price if it means finally getting his revenge. 1 month of grueling bone-snapping practice later, Yoon Seol actually masters the lightning and thunder forms. The intermediate chamber is finally in his rearview mirror, but the young warrior isn't celebrating just yet. Chan calls him a genius for finishing in 30 days, but Yoon Seol is frustrated. He thinks he was too slow. With the lightning technique surging through his veins, he's finally ready to breach the advanced level gates. The second he steps into the advanced chamber, every elite trainee in the room locks onto him like prey. The air is thick with a new kind of savagery. These guys have seen his carnage and they're thirsting for a challenge. It's ironic, people treat undertakers like garbage, yet they worship the high-tier killers who keep the graves full. Take your seat, the instructor barks, slicing through the tension as he signals the start of the real grind. Since a new challenger has entered the arena, the master decides to drop some heavy lore on everyone. He begins breaking down the central reading of the Rain Sword along with the legendary 7 teachings. He stresses the need for perfect internal balance. Without an unshakable core, your stance is just a house of cards. Looking at the ancient notes, Yoon Seol realizes this would have been gibberish without his previous hellish training. Those intermediate lessons were the secret key. Once the lecture ends, the instructor motions for Yoon Seol to follow. They head deep into the garden. The master's vibe shifts as they reach the secluded back of the chamber. He drops a bomb, a true monster, can dismantle an armed enemy even if their own hands are empty. At that level of mastery, you don't need a blade to manifest the soul-crushing power of the sword arts. The instructor snaps off a simple plant branch, leveling it at Yoon Seol, with a gaze that cuts like steel. You're unarmed and I'm coming for your head. How do you survive the old man challenges? While Yoon Seol was grinding in the intermediate pits, his rivals already mastered the Shining Mystique form. That's the peak of the Fire Rain Sword. The master warns that theory is useless if the student is a fool. If you can't solve this riddle, don't expect a single lesson from me, he warns with icy authority. Yoon Seol centers his breathing. If I don't have a sword, he retorts, I'll just take yours. He lunges his hand a blur as he strikes for the branch, but he's basically trying to catch the wind. Before he can even blink, the instructor vanishes and reappears behind him, mocking his slow reaction time. Too hasty, the master scolds, but Yoon Seol is vibrating with shock. He didn't see the move at all. His mind is racing. How could someone move that fast without leaving a single trace of their presence? He charges again, desperate to close the gap, but the result is the same soul-crushing failure every time. Frustration boils over. No matter how he calculates, he can't predict where the old man will strike from next. He didn't expect to win, but being completely blitzed like a rank amateur is a massive reality check. Panic flares. If he can't impress this master right now, his journey in the advanced chamber ends today. It's time to go primal. He decides to unleash the wild beast path, putting everything into one explosive burst. He pounces toward the branch like a starving predator, only to be swatted back like a bothersome fly. Yoon Seol hits the dirt, staring at the sky in total defeat. The gap in their power is a literal canyon. But before he can sink into despair, the instructor dashes over and slaps his shoulder with a massive laugh. You passed the test, he shouts. Yoon Seol is stunned. He didn't even graze the guy, let alone take the branch. It makes zero sense. He failed the mission, yet the old man looks more impressed than ever. Tomorrow, the Shining Mystique begins. Be here before the sun rises, and way before your rivals. A wave of relief hits him. Yoon Seol bows deep, knowing the path to true power has finally opened up. As he turns to depart, the instructor's gaze lingers on the severed branch gripped in his palm. A shower of leaves drifts down. Eun-seo didn't realize it, but his strike actually grazed the target. The veteran master craftily blasted him back to mask the success, yet internally he's absolutely blown away. He anticipates massive growth from the boy. Meanwhile, Eun-seo treks deep into the dense, silent forest. Instead of lounging, he focuses on his breathing and chi flow, sensing a potential ambush at any second. Primal instincts flare as he detects multiple shadows stalking him. His sharpened senses pinpoint every single hidden threat. 5 furious warriors emerge, snarling that Eun-seo's ego has been out of control since the intermediate chamber. They're itching to humiliate him, bragging about their fearsome reputation as the legendary 5-peak swords. These self-proclaimed prodigies aren't here for talk. They're ready to end his life right then and there. Eun-seo keeps his guard up, his heightened perception, revealing a 6th presence lurking in the darkness. Just as the squad lunges, a terrifying figure materializes from the gloom right behind them. One brutal blow sends their leader face-planting into the dirt, instantly paralyzing the rest with pure terror. They spin around to find the elite trainee Seo Jinha standing over them. He ignores the weaklings locking eyes with Eun-seo. He demands a private chat, but the remaining 4 idiots try to intervene, questioning why he's even there. Jinha tells them to beat it since they're irrelevant. Trembling, they scramble to grab their unconscious leader. They flee into the night, screaming desperate threats about getting revenge on Eun-seo later. Eun-seo recognizes the overwhelming aura radiating from Jinha. Once the coast is clear, the monster focuses back on him, Leveling his blade at Unso's throat, he drops a chilling question. Who are you? Unso is left baffled. Flashback to training, the master summoned Unso to center stage to demonstrate the latest sword form. With a sharp inhale, Unso unleashed a flurry of surgical strikes. For minutes, the air whistled with his lethal precision. When he finished, the earth was scarred with deep, perfect gashes. The instructor's eyes widened in genuine shock. It was clear Unso had infused his moves with a chilling, raw, killing intent that demanded respect. Up next was Seo Jinha. The atmosphere shifted instantly as the powerhouse stepped onto the training grounds. He brushed past Unso, radiating pure malice. Tasked with the fire rain sword technique, Jinha prepared his move. Instead, he executed a flawless counter-style specifically designed to crush Unso's form. A blatant, terrifying warning. Back in the present, Unso questions the cryptic interrogation, but Jinha erupts in a sudden roar of fury. Jinha knows the truth. Some people on this island are definitely hiding their real identities. Hearing the mention of the 10 demonic masters, Unso's blood runs cold as the pieces click together. The chance to master forbidden demonic arts seemed like a dream, yet the entire setup felt suspiciously hurried. The execution was sloppy. He suddenly realizes this grand opportunity actually serves a darker, dual purpose. It's a massive trap designed to flush out an intruder. Keeping his cool, Unso asks, "Is there a spy here?" Sensing no deception in Unso's tone, Jinha's hostility vanishes as he finally clicks his sword back into its sheath. Concluding that Unso isn't his target, Jinha warns him to stop drawing so much unwanted attention to himself. "Piss me off again and I'll end you," he spits. As Jinha vanishes, Unso's mind begins to race. There's a web of dangerous secrets unfolding under the surface. He finally begins to grasp the bigger picture. Obsessed with his cultivation, he'd been blind to the politics. Now he forcefully clears his mind of all distractions. Spies or allies, it doesn't matter. They'll all be opponents eventually. Shortly after, a new announcement rings out. The master declares the official end of their grueling regimen, delivering a final stirring farewell to the survivors. After a final hype speech for their journey into the Muram, a massive bell suddenly echoes across the island. Confusion ripples through the crowd until the master commands everyone to assemble at the central stone mountain immediately. Soon the disciples congregate at the mountain's peak, where the head instructor stands, waiting like a statue. Once the final student arrives, the head instructor scans the crowd with a piercing, authoritative gaze. He announces the immediate start of the third trial, leaving the majority of the trainees completely blindsided. Panic spreads. Everyone was bracing themselves for the second trial, not this sudden leap in the schedule. They were expecting trial number 2, but Unso is the only one who truly knows the truth. Jin Gok delivers the grim news: all student dorms are now strictly off-limits. These chambers remain sealed until the elite 10 demon masters are finally crowned. He commands them to scavenge essential supplies before the caves are locked forever. A student speaks. "How will the 10 be chosen?" The instructor sighs, disgusted by their lack of intuition. They still haven't grasped the lethal stakes. So he spells out the brutal reality. It is a total bloodbath. They must slaughter one another until only 10 remain standing. Use any dirty tactic, flee, hide, or betray. But there is a deadly catch. As the clock ticks, the safe zones will shrink, forcing everyone into a corner. Anyone caught outside the boundaries will be harvested by the terrifying caped killer demons. One glance at these nightmares is enough to break a man. Even Yun Seol shudders. He can feel their suffocating bloodlust radiating from across the field, signaling pure danger. These are clearly peak-level monsters. Suddenly, a trainee asks if they can slay the demons. Hyuk erupts into maniacal laughter, genuinely thrilled by such a suicidal and ambitious question. He loves the moxie of those aiming high. "Go ahead," he sneers. "Try it. Murdering a killer demon is permitted." In fact, he reveals a shocking game-changer. Slaying a demon grants instant promotion to Demon Master status, turning the trial into chaos. The realization hits: hunting a demon is a death sentence compared to fighting other trainees. Hyuk reminds the survivors that alliances and backstabbing are all fair play here. In this hellscape, no method is forbidden as long as you claim a seat. Once the meeting breaks, the scramble begins. Trainees vanish into the shadows to gear up. Yoon Sol immediately bolts, putting massive distance between himself and the potential ticking bombs. He knows he has a target on his back. An ambush isn't just likely, it is guaranteed. Those Peak 5 clowns are still thirsty for his blood. Rule 1, find a fortress. He guns it for the wandering pavilion, but the very earth feels wrong. Shifted. He drops low, tracing the dirt to decipher the ground's new hidden secrets. Sudden movement. A desperate trainee bursts through the brush, hunters hot on his heels. "Help me," he screams, begging for a lifeline. Unsol's hand tightens on his blade. Is this a trap? The guy swears he will repay the favor if Unsol saves him. The pursuers are closing the gap. Unsol scans the scene with cold, analytical eyes. Those gashes look too deep to be faked. 3 predators are prowling very nearby. Are they a pack or just vultures? Honestly, Unsol couldn't care less about their drama. But this loudmouth is going to blow his cover. His hand is finally forced. He shoves the stranger into a secret subterranean bolt hole, vanishing just in time. The trio arrives, finding nothing but thin air. They prowl the pavilion completely baffled. They are hunting ghosts, oblivious to the prey breathing right beneath their dusty boots. Frustrated and confused, the pack finally gives up the search and retreats into the woods. Clear Yunsol and his unexpected baggage finally crawl back into the dim light. The guy is rambling about gratitude, but Yunsol isn't even paying him any attention. He is focused on the craftsmanship of the tunnels. Sahu's unique work is unmistakable. While submerged in the dark, his wild beast senses didn't just work, they evolved. His awareness ripples through the earth, mapping the terrain with pinpoint supernatural precision. This was a trial. Sahu wanted him to master the complex art of seismic vibration. "I'm Jum Chol Young Blood Sect," the guy chirps. He desperately asks for Unsol's name. Only stone-cold silence follows. Unsol just turns and keeps moving toward his next objective. Guillaume begs him to wait, desperate for a powerhouse ally he can actually trust. Bound by a debt of escape, Unso stays silent, a quietness Gum greedily mistakes for consent. Vibrating with hype, Gum tails Unso like a loyal stray, officially cementing their shaky alliance. Minutes later, Unso drops low, pressing his palm to the dirt to read the earth's hidden tremors. Sensing a brutal clash ahead, he signals a tactical detour to avoid the incoming bloodshed. Stunned by this god-tier tracking, Gum begs for a lesson, his eyes gleaming with newfound greed. Cold as ever, Uncio pushes forward until a desperate voice from the battlefield catches his ear. A warrior screams for retribution. That single word triggers a violent chill down Unso's spine. He recognizes that same dark hunger for revenge. Gum watches, sensing the sudden shift in Unso's aura. Gum starts to pry, but Unso cuts him off. Their route just changed, and not for safety. He is not dodging the chaos anymore. He is diving headfirst into the slaughter. Shadows stir above. High in the canopy, a hidden trainee locks onto Unso and lunges with lethal intent. Unso parries the strike effortlessly, leaving the assassin reeling in pure disbelief. How he gasps. How could a mere outsider see through the legendary forbidden concealment art? No words, just steel. A singular, devastating arc of his blade splits the killer in two. Only the primal instincts of the wild beast path allowed him to survive that lethal ambush. He decides to save the trapped warrior, desperate to know the flavor of a completed revenge. Death loomed over the man until Unso materialized like a ghost, striking with terrifying precision. He carves through the crowd with ruinous power. But the shadows are not empty yet. A blade whispers behind his neck, nearly claiming his head before Unso blurs out of range. Encircled by killers, Unso unleashes his inner demon, shredding his enemies with savage efficiency. Only one remains. As Unso prepares the final blow, the vengeful survivor rises from the blood. He strikes from the rear, ending the last killer with a haunting, victorious grin. His mission is complete. But before Unso can speak, the warrior collapses into the dirt. Gum crawls out from his hiding spot, trembling. Unso does not even spare him a glance. He kneels to inspect the fallen man, and that is when Gum finally reveals his treacherous fangs. But Unso is a predator, not prey. He blocks the backstab without even looking back. He shoves the traitor back, his voice dripping with icy venom for interrupting his moment. Gum stole his chance for answers, but the coward is only worried about his failed betrayal. He is desperate to know, how did Unso sniff out his hidden intent so easily? "I knew the second we met," Unso admits, recalling their time in the dark shelter. He had already spotted the arsenal of secret blades stashed beneath Gum's clumsy robes. Gum's movements were rigid, weighed down by the very steel meant for his treachery. He only kept the snake alive out of curiosity to study the limits of a master deceiver. Gum snaps. His ego shatters as he screams that his perfect acting could not possibly be flawed. He hurls his hidden blades in a frenzy, but Unso bats them away like flies. Cold terror sets in. Unso is not just fast. He is reading Gum's every move like a book. In a flicker of speed, Unso closes the gap, his blade tasting the traitor's shoulder. "Your weapons are top tier," Unso mocks, "but your concealment is absolute trash." Desperation takes over. Gum lunges one last time, staking everything on a final suicidal strike. He charges with a roar, but Unso simply glides through him, ending his life mid-stride. Standing over the corpse, Unso admits that those hidden blades actually posed a real threat. If he had been blind to the trap, things would have ended differently. Gum dies with a hollow stare. It is the look of a loser. Yet the vengeful warrior's face is eerily peaceful, even in death. Unso stares, wondering if his own end will look that satisfied once his vengeance is done. Claiming the fallen man's blade, Unso steps into the shadows, now a dual-wielding force of nature. Deep in the brush, a shadowy figure lurks, tracking Unseol's every move with a predatory gaze. After witnessing his lethal combat, this stranger begrudgingly admits that Unseol has some seriously cracked potential. But potential only goes so far. Without a massive level up, this island will become his final graveyard. Sunrise brings a fresh nightmare as a mob of trainees hunt Yoon Seol, desperate to delete him. Despite his bleeding wounds, Yoon Seol pushes past his limits, sensing his pursuers have zero intentions of stopping. As he maneuvers for an opening, his mind races for a way out, while the head instructor and Jin Gook observe from the heights. Demanding a status report, the instructor learns only 41 of the original 86 trainees remain. Hearing that 41 are still standing after 3 brutal days actually brings a smile to the instructor's face. He notes their survival proves their worth, declaring it time to push their limits even further. Yoon Seol lashes his daggers together, hurling them back to stagger his pursuers just as they close the gap. This desperate move buys him a second. He realizes that a head-on clash in the open is pure suicide. Victory requires a shift in the battlefield. He needs a terrain that favors his lethal style. He sprints toward the Fire Rain Sect building, unaware the instructor has already targeted that location for his next trial. The instructor has already marked that very spot as the cage, where he'll test Yoon Seol's survival instincts. Sliding into the building, Yoon Seol deliberately paints a crimson trail for his hunters to track. They follow the scent into a cramped corridor, thinking he's cornered until he ghosts behind them. His blade nearly claims a head, but the enemy barely parries while screaming a warning to the others. The man sneers, boasting that seasoned killers like them won't be fooled by such amateurish tactics. Metal clashes in a frantic dance, but Yoon Seol reads every strike, weaving through their offense with effortless grace. In the split second he evades a lethal swing, the perfect opening for a counter-offensive reveals itself. He seizes the moment, delivering a devastating strike that decapitates his foe instantly, sending the survivors into a frenzy. They charge together, but the narrow walls become their worst enemy, stifling their coordination. This confined space is Yoon Seol's playground. He moves without restriction while they stumble over each other. Dominating the hallway, he turns the tight quarters into a slaughterhouse for his frustrated attackers. Assessing the chaos, Yoon Seol knows he can wipe them out if he keeps the fight strictly one-on-one. The realization hits them: if they don't break the formation, he'll pick them off like sitting ducks. Panicking, an assailant hurls a whip weapon, causing it to ricochet violently off the stone walls. The deadly lash nearly ensnares him, but Yoon Seol narrowly leaps clear of the strike zone. Seeing Yoon Seol forced into the open, the remaining crew scrambles to follow him out. Instead, they collide with their team leader, whose face is twisted in a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Disgusted by their perceived cowardice, he ignores their frantic claims of just needing a better position. With a single cold-blooded swing, the captain silences their excuses forever. Severed heads roll as blood sprays the room. He scoffs at the garbage he was forced to lead. Now that the flies are swatted, Yoon Seol finds himself staring down the true monster of the team. The captain begrudgingly respects the boy's prowess, though his eyes remain cold and predatory. He introduces himself as Woo Mun Cheong, but Yoon Seol only cares about his rank within the organization. This perceived disrespect enrages Woo, who decides that names are useless for a man about to die. Woo's whip lashes out like a viper, coiling around Yoon Seol's blade and shattering it into a million pieces. He mocks the Fire Rain sect, laughing that they only taught the boy one pathetic defensive move. A chill runs down Yoon Seol's spine as he realizes this man knows the secrets of his techniques. How could he possibly know about the shining mystique? The mystery weighs heavy on Yoon Seol's mind. He wonders if Woo's information network is far more vast and dangerous than he ever imagined. Sensing the boy's distraction, Woo lunges forward. Yoon Seol barely evades the crushing force of the follow-up. Woo's weapon pulverizes everything it touches. The confined space has now become a death trap for Yoon Seol. He retreats to the main hall and draws his second blade, preparing for a final stand against Woo. Another massive blow from the whip sends him reeling as Woo emerges from the shadows like a demon. The captain yawns, bored by the lack of resistance as he prepares to finish his prey. Suddenly, the whip coils around Yoon Seol, binding him tight before he can even blink. Woo sneers, savoring the moment of absolute victory. The end is finally at hand. Yoon Seol knows Shining Mystique could stop this, but he lacks the raw power. Then a sudden realization strikes. He needs a different beast entirely, a raw, destructive power capable of slicing through solid steel. As the whip coils around Yoon Seol, Woo smirks, convinced the job is finally finished. But wait, he senses Yoon Seol brewing something. Still, his arrogance keeps him from feeling any real concern. He expects the Shining Mystique, but his smug grin instantly shatters into a mask of pure horror. Yoon Seol explodes from the trap, fueled by a crushing force and draped in a blinding golden aura. He unleashed it, the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique, a forbidden power passed down from Xion. Before Woo can even blink, Yoon Seol closes the gap with the speed of a crashing thunderbolt. Yoon Seol streaks past, delivering a lethal strike so precise the pain only registers after he's done. In a heartbeat, his life light flickers out, and Woo's lifeless body collapses into the dirt. With his foe fallen, the recoil of that god-tier skill finally hits, forcing Yoon Seol to cough up crimson. It's a devastating trump card, but Yoon Seol knows he can't just spam this level of destruction. The technique is light years beyond his current level. Still, a win is a win, and he's alive. Time was wasted, and he realizes the restricted zones are about to shift in a dangerous way. He needs to bolt now, but suddenly, a soul-chilling pressure manifests behind him. He slowly turns. A monstrous killer demon looms over him, radiating pure malice. Cold dread begins to paralyze his heart. He prays it's an illusion, but reality hits hard. The restricted zones have already changed. They must have cycled while he was distracted by his last fight. Now he's desperately looking for an exit. Can he escape without a bloodbath? He didn't intentionally wander into this death zone after all. Trying to avoid a confrontation, he gingerly shifts his weight, keeping his eyes locked on the demon. When the monster doesn't flinch, Yoon Seol feels a flicker of hope. Is he actually in the clear? Thinking he's been granted a pass, he decides to seize the opportunity and hightail it out. He bolts past the beast, but right as he passes, his wild beast instincts scream a bloody warning. He envisions his own head flying off. At the last microsecond, he twists to avoid the Reaper's blade. His heart nearly stops. He couldn't even track the demon's movement. It was like fighting a ghost. Without those primal instincts, he'd be nothing more than a headless corpse right now. Lesson learned that calm expression is a lie. This demon is a hair-trigger killing machine. One false move and it's game over. Suddenly, Sawoo's old lessons about predators and prey flash back. In nature, even the apex carnivores struggle when their prey doesn't follow a straight line. A zigzagging herbivore is hard to pin down, yet the predator always seems to claim its meal. Why? Because even chaos becomes predictable. The predator just waits for that one rhythmic slip-up. To avoid the trap of predictability, Yoon Seol lets out a primal roar, shattering the silence. He begins to move with erratic, bizarre footwork, making his trajectory absolutely impossible to read. The plan ignites. His first jagged burst actually evades the demon, earning a flicker of genuine surprise. He baits the demon with a standard zigzag. The moment the monster prepares to intercept, Yoon Seol switches to the wild beast path, dancing through death. He preps for one final dash. Suddenly, cold steel touches his skin. The demon is already there, sword held firmly against his throat. Ice-cold sweat pours down his face. He was too slow. But then something impossible happens. The demon halts his blade. Instead of ending him, the monster just stands there. Yoon Seol looks around. He's done it. He crossed the boundary. He's officially outside the restricted death zone. He reflects on the gap between them. Even at full power, he couldn't find a single opening. As he walks away, the true weight of being a martial artist finally sinks into his soul. He was just a small frog in a very deep well. Against a true titan, he was powerless. Once he's safely away, he replays the encounter, analyzing every terrifying second of that pressure. The realization hits like a truck that demon's prowess actually rivals the legendary strength of his grandfather. To survive this world, he must transcend the limits of even a killer demon. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the air. Someone has been hunting him. He turns to find a mysterious figure perched on a rock, mocking his wild beast path. Info on Yoon Seol is spreading fast. The stranger starts to introduce himself but scoffs. There's no point in naming a dead man. He lunges with lethal intent, but Yoon Seol remains ice-cold, dodging the strike with predatory grace. The attacker is stunned. His target's beast-like reflexes are the real deal. This man realizes Yoon Seol is destined to become a legendary demon master, so he decides to end him now. He shifts his stance, his voice dripping with lethal intent. As a crucial memory flashes through Yoon Seol's mind, he instantly clears his head to stay sharp and avoid a fatal blow. As their blades clash, a violent vibration surges through his steel and rattles Yoon Seol's entire body. A few exchanges later, his suspicions are finally confirmed. He recalls a grim day with his grandfather examining a corpse, as the old man explained, that the killer used the 5 tiger severing blades of the Hebei Feng clan. There wasn't a single scratch outside yet, every bone was crushed. Gramps revealed that this art injects destructive chi directly into the enemy upon the slightest weapon contact. Armed with this knowledge, Yoon Seol calls the man out, exposing his secret, and identifying the infamous Hebei Feng clan's signature 5 tiger severing blades technique. The assassin's jaw drops in pure shock, demanding to know how a kid knows his secrets. This style relies on a terrifying chi absorption method that acts like a gravitational force. It's a literal vortex, sucking in the opponent's weapon to shatter their balance. Once the enemy is off balance, they strike for the kill. Young Yoon Seol was mesmerized by the explanation, asking if the Hebei Feng clan was truly the strongest in the world. But Gramps warned that this deadly art is a double-edged sword for the user, because it requires them to get dangerously close. Yoon Seol decides to exploit this fatal flaw. He charges head-on, and the Feng assassin readies his blade to execute his clan's pride. Feng sneers about uprooting demon seedlings before they can ever blossom into masters. Suddenly, Yoon Seol jams his sword into the dirt. Feng thinks the kid has finally lost his mind, but he's wrong. Yoon Seol blurs past the strike and delivers a brutal kick to his gut. sending him flying back in agony. Yun Sol smirks as he retrieves his blade. The plan is working. Still, he knows that simple kick wasn't enough to end this fight, as it barely dealt any real damage. He respects the years of training his opponent possesses, and won't rely on cheap tricks alone. But now he finally has the perfect counter-strategy. Recalling his instructor's wisdom, he remembers the golden rule, let the enemy strike first. Feng lunges with blinding speed. Instead of panicking, Yun Seol stays calm and focused, deciding to ride the momentum of the attack until the ultimate moment of redirection. He executes it perfectly, narrowly missing Feng's skull. Feng's life flashes before him as he realizes Yun Seol is weaponizing his own technique against him. He refuses to believe it, because his absorption technique is powerful enough to pull boulders from a distance. Even Grandmaster swordsmen struggle against this force, making Yun Seol's feat impossible. He can't fathom how a mere brat possesses the skill to dismantle his ultimate art. Desperate Feng ramps up the absorption power, unaware he's falling into a trap. As he's only making Yun Seol's blade move even faster, Yun Seol finds an opening, but Feng barely evades, anticipating the strike. He catches Yun Seol off guard by suddenly cutting off his chi absorption. He brags that he doesn't need gimmicks to kill a brat. Feng charges with raw speed, ditching his signature technique to finish Yun Seol off. But this was exactly the opening Yun Seol needed. As the distance closes, Yun Seol unleashes the Fire Rain Sword's first form, Shining Mystique. Like all his foes before him, Feng is paralyzed with horror by the sheer power of the strike. It turns out, Yun Seol flipped the script, transforming a defensive move into a lethal offensive strike. He risked everything for this one-shot gamble, and even Feng must admit his absolute brilliance. As Yun Seol turns to leave, a stunned Feng asks why. "You aren't on my list," he coldly replies. That's precisely why he's letting him live. Feng exhales a breath of pure relief, suggesting they become total strangers from now on. The moment Yun Seol vanishes, a nightmare manifests behind Feng, the cold, looming silhouette of a killer demon. Shaking, Feng asks if his execution has arrived, but the demonic slayer reveals a much darker truth. He'd served his purpose to the Orthodox sect. Feng freezes in horror, realizing this monster knows his deepest secrets. Exposed as an Orthodox mole, Feng watches as the demon scoffs with absolute bone-chilling contempt. He'd fatally underestimated the reach of the demon palace. With one brutal flash of steel, the demon ends Feng's life. Elsewhere, Seo Jinha finds himself cornered by a pack of bloodthirsty trainees from the hellish sect. During the clash, a lethal toxin enters his system instantly, draining 95% of his combat effectiveness. His enemies taunt him, calling him a walking corpse, unless he can somehow pry the cure from their cold fingers. A cure they'll never surrender. Jinha finally regrets his solo path, realizing he's hopelessly outmatched by their coordination. Their teamwork is surgical. Refusing to yield, Jinha desperately shifts his blade to his left hand to keep fighting. Bracing for the end, he faces their mockery. The attackers acknowledge his raw skill, but laugh at his pathetic desperation. A natural righty can't suddenly master the left. They sneer, knowing his clumsy defense is doomed to fail. "Just die already," they jeer, lunging forward for the kill. Jinha plants his feet, struggling to hold his ground. Then disaster strikes again. Another venomous needle pierces his skin, sealing his grim fate for good. He's got 10 minutes before the toxin stops his heart. Seeing the futility, he finally prepares for the inevitable end. Lowering his blade, Jinha waits to be butchered. But in a heartbeat, the very air around them shifts. An attacker collapses lifelessly before reaching him. Panic erupts as they realize a new predator has entered the area. Confusion reigns, until Yun Seol manifests behind them, like a vengeful ghost, radiating pure, murderous intent. His strike is a blur of surgical precision, dismantling the group instantly. Soon, only Yun Seol remains among the carnage. He stands alone amidst a sea of bodies. Terror grips Jinha as the mysterious savior turns his gaze toward him. Jinha pleads for mercy, swearing he's no threat. But Yun Seol treats his words like mere background noise. He indifferently loots the corpses, hunting for something specific. It seems Yun Seol's eyes are only on the antidote. Finding the vial brings a cold satisfaction. It's his insurance policy against the elite of the hellish blood castle. As he turns to leave, a desperate Jinha cries out, revealing he's already being consumed by the poison. He has 10 minutes left. Yun Seol glances back, his voice like ice, as he declares his mission total extermination. No one gets a pass, not even Jinha. He's only holding back his blade because death is already coming. Why waste a strike on a corpse? Jinha feels the stinging truth to Yun Seol, he's already a ghost. Another rival erased. In a final frantic gamble, Jinha offers a strategic alliance in exchange for the cure. Yun Seol questions the value of such a deal. Scrambling for leverage, Jinha points to the remaining threats. 20 trainees still lurk in the shadows, all hunting in packs. Even a monster like Yun Seol can't solo them. He'll be swarmed eventually. Jinha offers a trade, his survival for his knowledge of every rival group's weakness. "Save me, and I'll be your most loyal shadow." Jinha swears an oath of absolute fealty to him, his life for his blade. Yunso pauses, calculating. He senses no deceit in the dying warrior's desperate eyes. Jinha isn't built for betrayal. The warrior doubles down, promising to fight by his side until the bitter end. A pact sealed in blood. Finally, Unseo relents and decides to gamble on this unexpected partnership. He tosses the vial. Jinha frantically scrambles to apply the life-saving powder to his festering wounds. Suddenly, a bell tolls the signal for another restricted death zone. Unso's instincts instantly flare at the sound. Move now, Unseo roars. Jinha hesitates, confused since they're technically still in the clear. Think idiot, Yunso screams. The map is shrinking rapidly, and the play zone is becoming a death trap. The boundary is closing in. Staying in the safe zone now means only one terrifying reality. Every surviving hunter is about to collide right here. Before the warning even lands, the air grows heavy. Hostile factions emerge from the trees, encircling them. Unso clicks his tongue, they're already boxed in. Scanning the crowd, his eyes lock onto a single figure, who radiates a completely different level of power. A warrior with a crimson scarf stares back his icy gaze, cutting through the chaos of the gathered factions. Without hesitation, one thug demands they slaughter Unso, Yol, and Jinha immediately. Forget their internal drama, every single hunter in this pack already has Jinha's number. They've scouted Unseo's lethal skills too. Cornered and desperate, Jinha's hand darts toward his antidote. Using the gift Unso provided earlier, he pulls a big brain move and hurls the powder. He roars its lethal poison from Hellish Blood Castle as a violet haze erupts everywhere. The mist chokes the air, sending the terrified mob into a panic as they mask their faces. As the enemies freak out over the fake toxin, our duo seizes the chance and bolts. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed foe realizes it's a total bluff and screams the truth to the pack. He exposes the fake poison, but Jinha's just hyped that the powder did its job. The smokescreen works perfectly, but Yunso's tactical mind is already 10 steps ahead. Realizing they're sitting ducks in the open, he hunts for a cave to bottleneck the fight. In that terrain, they'll dominate. Sensing the vibe, Jinha reads his partner's mind perfectly. Follow my lead, Unso commands, steering them toward a hidden cavern he knows well. It's his old stomping grounds, the ultimate defensive fort. Jinha is low-key impressed by the strategy. Unso's got this on lock. The pair charges forward, pushing deep toward their cave sanctuary. Disaster strikes as thick smoke plumes signal that their sanctuary has become a death trap. It's a restricted zone. Killer demons have the perimeter locked down tight, with zero way through. Unso knows the overseers are playing God, forcing this chaos just to watch the carnage. Panic sets in for Jinha, but Unso keeps it cool. Those demons won't budge yet. Stay clear of the fog, and they live. With no exit, Unso decides to hold ground. Using the demons as a wall is their only play. Facing the inevitable, they prepare. This is the final stand. Their pursuers finally arrive, bloodlust radiating from every single one. They're livid that these two pests lasted this long. No more talking, it's time for blood. They swarm in for the kill, while the head instructor watches the spectacle from the shadows. This brawl will crown the 10 demon masters. Suddenly, a rain of daggers whistles toward Unso. He dances through the blades, lunges, and silences the thrower forever. As he carves a path, Jinha is also serving humble pie, until a heavy projectile screams toward his head. Knocked back, Jinha and Unso are forced together, standing back to back against the overwhelming pressure. Enemies close the circle. Looking at the odds, Unso feels the icy touch of death. Jinha accepts his fate with no regrets. But those words trigger something inside Unso. Their paths diverge here. If Unso falls now, his entire journey ends in total failure. The thought of leaving his grandfather unavenged hits him like a freight train. He can't die. Fear vanishes. Unso locks in, flipping the script from desperate prey to ultimate apex predator. He becomes the hunter. The first two attackers don't even see the flash of his blade. He's a blur of steel, claiming lives before Jinha can even process the sudden shift. His style evolves instantly, carving through his foes as if they were made of paper. The crowd descends into a panic. They've never witnessed such a high-tier, mysterious combat art. Identifying the real threat, every weapon in the clearing pivots toward Yunseo. He's the target. His mind hits overdrive. His wild beast instincts awaken, sharpening every sense to a razor edge. Channeling Sa Wu's phantom movements, he becomes a ghost. All the enemies see are falling corpses. Limbs fly as Unso teleports through the fray. Even the head instructor's jaw starts to drop. He can't believe a mere trainee is fighting like a seasoned grandmaster. Unso is unstoppable. Suddenly, a phantom strike comes for his head. He barely brings his blade up to block. The raw power shatters his steel instantly, launching Unso backward like a broken doll. Jinha screams in terror as his friend hits the dirt. Unso's world is spinning. Snap reality hits him like a truck. He is trapped in a thick mist, his jaw dropping in pure terror. He looks up just to see a monstrous demon towering over him, blade ready to claim his head. Then the unthinkable happens. At the final second, the head instructor bellows a desperate command. The demon's claws are inches from Yoon Seol's throat. When Sa-woo teleports behind the beast, cold steel pressed against its neck. The message is clear, the boy lives. Yoon Seol locks eyes with his master, his vision blurring. That gaze is the last thing he sees before everything goes black. The head instructor's roar shakes the room, demanding the head physician appear instantly. He won't let Yoon Seol's flame flicker out. Jin Gok protests, claiming pausing the trial is a total violation of the rules. But the head instructor doesn't flinch, shutting him down. He'll carry the weight of this choice. Inside, he's actually hyped. He finally uncovered the diamond in the rough he has been hunting for. The instructor is dead certain that Yoon Seol is destined for greatness. He will definitely become one of the 10 demon masters. Later, Elder Hua Wuyong corners the instructor with questions. Hua wants to know why the script was flipped. The plan was simple: choose 10 demon masters and 2 scouts to serve them. They wanted 12 survivors total, but thanks to Yoon Seol's interference, 14 trainees are still breathing. The math is all wrong. Knowing a brutal punishment is coming, the head instructor looks Hua in the eye. He is fully prepared to pay the price. Hua is low-key panicking about how the 10 demonic sects will react. This news is going to blow up in their faces. But the instructor stays cool, assuring Hua that the executives will see the same insane potential in Yoon Seol that he did. Fast forward and Yoon Seol wakes up in a strange room smelling of heavy herbs. He quickly realizes he is in a medical ward. Checking his vitals, he is stunned. His body feels brand new and even his internal damage has completely vanished. The boy is floored. He never expected the Demon Palace's doctors to have such god-tier healing skills. Finding his strength, he rolls out of bed and limps into the hallway. There, an attendant is already waiting for him. Following the guide to the main hall, Yoon Seol's jaw hits the floor. The architecture here is straight up legendary. He asks where the heck they are. The attendant casually drops the news they are deep in the heart of Hell Island. It clicks. This massive building was hidden in the restricted zone, a place he was never supposed to see. Once he is settled in, the attendant offers him a meal. Yoon Seol doesn't hesitate. He orders 2 bowls of noodles. The steaming bowls arrive shortly after. His choice wasn't random. It was a tribute to his past. Noodles always reminded him of the quiet times with his grandfather. But before he can even take a bite, Jin Ha slides in, mocking him for trying to polish off 2 entire bowls solo. Yoon Seol isn't looking for friends. He shoots Jin Ha, a cold look asking what he wants. Jin Ha pauses, then drops his guard to say thank you. Jin Ha admits he would be 6 feet under if Yoon Seol hadn't stepped in. Yoon Seol tries to brush off the heroics, but Jin Ha insists. Only 12 trainees were supposed to make it out of that hellhole alive. The instructor's sudden mercy is the only reason Jin Ha is still standing. It was a total game changer. Yoon Seol is shook. His head spins even faster when he learns he has been out cold for 4 entire days. He thought it had only been a day. Jin Ha tells him he is lucky the infamous mad physician was in the neighborhood. This guy is a medical genius, but he lost his mind after failing to save the woman he loved. Now he is a chaotic miracle worker who can pull anyone back from death's door as long as they are breathing. Yoon Seol feels a wave of respect. Being treated by a living legend is a pretty big deal. Jin Ha shamelessly starts eating Yoon Seol's noodles, while spilling some high-stakes tea about their situation. He reveals those killer demons were actually elite masters, sent by the 10 demonic sects to test them. Soon, those same sects will arrive to handpick their next successors. Yoon Seol wonders why he was singled out for salvation. Jin Ha shrugs, admitting he was wondering the same thing. The instructor seemed oddly obsessed with saving Yoon Seol. The boss was desperate for Yoon Seol to claim a spot among the top 10 demon masters. Jin Ha suspects there is a secret history between them. Or maybe Yoon Seol's sect has some serious pull. Yoon Seol shuts it down. He has never met the man. But hearing about the instructor's brutal punishment, he can't help but wonder. Why would a complete stranger throw away his career just to keep him alive? Suddenly, a thunderous boom echoes through the hall. The vibe shifts instantly as the big players arrive. The executives of the 10 demonic sects have officially landed. The trainees gather, eyes glued to the entrance. As the heavy hitters flood the room, the vice master of the necromancer sect cuts straight to the chase. Bolsa locks eyes with Yang Moonho, demanding he enlist in the necromancer ranks immediately. Yang hesitates, totally confused. He's spent his life mastering the blade, not some spear. Bolsa scoffs, claiming Yang's very DNA is hardwired for the legendary necromancy spear technique. He argues that the sword was a shackle, preventing Yang from ever reaching true peak status. With that revelation ringing in his ears, Yang wordlessly falls in line behind Bolsa. Next up is Yok Yohan, the terrifying vice master of the hellish blood castle. The room goes cold when Jock chooses Jinha, leaving the young warrior completely floored. Jinha is reeling. Why would a sword prodigy join a sect famous for lethal poison arts? Jock explains that the ultimate toxin isn't a liquid, it's a cold, poisonous heart. He exposes Jinha's secret, using a girl to butcher trainees before the 3rd trial started. When the plan tanked, Jinha silenced her permanently. Jock isn't judging. He's actually impressed. Jinha tries to play victim, claiming she volunteered, but Jock just laughs it off. He admires Jinha's win-at-all-costs vibe and his willingness to stack bodies for power. Jock drops a truth bomb. Jinha will never conquer the Murim if he clings to the sword. Finally, Jinha sees the light. His true gift isn't steel, it's pure, lethal venom. Watching Yunso's freakish growth with a blade was the final nail in Jinha's ego. Accepting his fate, Jinha turns his back on the sword and joins the hellish castle. As Jock claims his prize, the demonic path's apex predator, Wee Hyokun, steps forward. The Fire Rain Swordmaster's presence is suffocating, putting even Unso on high alert. The tension is electric until Wee shocks the crowd by calling out Unseo's name. Wee's heard the rumors and is dying to see if this kid actually lives up to the hype. But as Wee turns to leave, Unso does the unthinkable and stops him cold. Without blinking, Unso boldly declares he has zero interest in joining the Fire Rain sect. Wee freezes, wondering if his ears just failed him. Then his demonic rage explodes. His crushing aura slams Unso to the floor, but the kid refuses to back down. I have the right to choose, Unso wheezes. Wee sneers, demanding to know his destination. Unso calmly chooses the Wandering Beast Pavilion, making Wee's blood boil even harder. To Wee, that place is literal garbage. He thinks Unso is straight up mocking him. The kill intent intensifies, and Unso finally understands why Wee is the strongest. Relief washes over Unso as the weight suddenly vanishes. Looking up, he sees Sawu shielding him from Wee's murderous pressure, which only fuels the master's rage. Wee can't believe a low-level pavilion master is actually daring to step in his way. As the pressure spikes, Sawu grips his hilt. Every witness in the room is freaking out. They can't wrap their heads around Sawu actually drawing steel against a monster like Wee. Wee warns him to stay in his lane, reminding him they're close to Jingak. A bystander realizes that if these two clash, every trainee in the room is finished. Someone has to jump in and defuse this ticking time bomb before the palace crumbles. Just as Wee reaches for his blade, a hand gently pushes the sword back down. It's Dan Xian from the Wandering Beast sect, playing the role of the ultimate peacemaker. He begs Wee to let it slide. Soon the other elders join in, pleading for calm. After a tense silence, Wee finally relents, handing Unso to the Wandering Beast sect. Sawu doesn't waste a second ushering Unso out before Wee can change his mind. Unso knows the truth. If that intervention hadn't happened, he'd be a corpse right now. Safe at last, Sawu commends Unso's massive improvement. Seol's hype for Sawu is peak. They hit the pavilion gates. It's a bustling village, not the grim fortress Seol expected. Everyone's smiling. No edgy vibes. Dan clocks Seol's confusion. We're self-sufficient, Dan brags. But Seol spots a red flag. No Gen Z disciples. Dan drops a cold truth bomb. They ran or died training. Dan points to a rotting shack. Home sweet home, Dan mocks. Nothing broken, get to work. Grab forged tools. Now Dan tells Sawu it's time. Sawu's leaving. Dan explains the price of Seol's safety. Sawu has zero clout against the legendary sword demon. Saving Seol has consequences. Guilt hits Seol like a truck. Just a scratch. Sawu grins, slapping Seol's back hard. Don't slack, Sawu warns. Then Dan's cold gaze returns. You're no disciple. Demon Master status. Worthless here. Titles mean zip. This pavilion only has one rule. No weaklings allowed. How do I get strong? Seol asks. No boring rituals here. It's all about pure power. No oaths, no fake loyalty, just your will to survive. Master the arts, get strong, that's your only ticket. Everyone's your mentor if they choose to teach a rookie. Dawn breaks. Seol faces the massive jagged iron peak. Orders climb the summit. An energy master awaits him. Muscles burning, Seol finally conquers the peak's jagged summit. A monk waits. His sheer aura is a physical wall. Pressure nearly breaks him. Seol stands firm, introducing himself. Current power not enough, the monk asks, eyes piercing deep. Seol's lost. What technique? The monk reveals a hidden secret. True chi radiates from Seol. It looks like lifetime cultivation. I'm just a mortician, Seol insists. Training, only dead bodies. Monk narrows his eyes. Liar, or a literal dream cultivator. Liar or dream master, Seol's desperate to prove his words. Test me, Seol dares. The monk's interest is sparked. Can I shatter your? Chi. Seol nods. High stakes gamble. He freezes. Seol's overflowing with massive raw true chi. Stagnant, stored without techniques. That's straight up impossible. Impossible. He snatches Seol. Who showed you this miracle? Who's your master? Seol's clueless. What do you mean? Who taught you inner stillness? The monk demands fiercely. Grandpa's breathing trick. Show me, the monk commands now. Seol drops into stance. The breath flows otherworldly and deep. Standing cultivation, monks floored. Stop. That's completely insane. Your grandpa taught this, Seol confirms the family lore. We play dead in coffins. The monk is speechless. That's no trick, it's a divine chi-gathering god-tier method. It builds the engine but doesn't steer. Pure potential. The master drops a bombshell. Yun-Sol already harbors 10 years' worth of potent internal energy. He then grills the boy about his lineage, and Seol reveals his grandfather is the legendary Bu Jianyang. The name hits like a thunderclap. Only one man in the entire Murim carries that heavy title. We're talking about the peerless Demon Path swordsman and former vice master of the feared Demon Palace. Seol's brain short-circuits. There's no way a powerhouse like that would end up as a lowly undertaker. The bunk adds a twist. The breathing technique Jianyang taught Seol actually belongs to the Shaolin sect. This sent chills down Seol's spine. His entire foundation was built on secret Orthodox sect arts. A massive question looms: was his grandfather actually a high-ranking master of the righteous Orthodox path? Pure terror grips Seol. If the truth leaks, his title as a demon master is completely toast. In a worst-case scenario, he's a dead man. The master tells him to chill and keep his head. He isn't worried. The Demon Palace's background checks are lethal, yet they didn't find a single red flag. Since he's in the clear, the master offers to teach Seol his own secret breathing technique. Bound by a promise to the Wandering Beast Pavilion, the monk doesn't care about Seol's origin. He couldn't care less if Seol uses orthodox or demonic arts, but there is one deadly catch. If Seol ever leaks this technique, the master will hunt him and his loved ones down without mercy. Seol doesn't flinch. Seeing the kid's resolve, the master introduces himself as the legendary Hyo Gyum Gang. He tests Seol's knowledge, asking if he knows the real difference between orthodox and demonic energy. Seol is clueless. Hyo explains that the orthodox way follows nature, while the demonic path takes shortcuts. Demonic cultivators use any brutal method necessary to gather power, pushing their bodies to the absolute limit. They get a massive head start in raw power, but their methods basically defy human biology. Yet in the endgame, orthodox masters reign supreme thanks to the purity of their refined true chi. Hyo reveals that his technique is a game-changer, transcending the limits of standard demonic martial arts. He claims this cultivation method is the absolute peak, the most miraculous technique in existence. But God-tier power has a price. The training process is a literal descent into agonizing hell. Hyo once gnawed his own fingers off to survive the pain. Only survivors achieve total energy synchronization. Hyo spills the tea. He was once a top-tier master of the prestigious Azure Dragon Temple. Framed for murder and exiled, his energy was sealed until the Wandering Beast Pavilion saved him. Teaching Seol is how he repays his life debt to the pavilion before his time runs out. To ensure Seol is worthy, Hyo demands one final brutal test before handing over the technique. Hyo plans to use his true chi to pierce all 365 of Seol's acupuncture points. This extreme process will purge his vessels and prep his body for the legendary technique. Hyo warns that the agony will be unbearable, giving the kid one last chance to back out. But Seol is built different. With ice in his veins, he tells the master to bring it on. Hyo floods Seol's system with true chi, but he's immediately struck by something totally unprecedented. He expected Seol to be howling in agony, but the boy is just vibing in total silence. Then it hits him: there's no foul odor or impurities leaking from Seol's body at all. The kid's vessels are pristine without a single drop of tainted energy. Hyo is absolutely hyped. "I'm teaching you everything," he roars. 6 months later, Seol's transformation is straight up legendary. He is leveled up hard. No longer a scrawny kid, he's now pure shredded muscle. Hyo hurls a massive boulder at him, but Seol doesn't even move. He just starts aura farming. Without lifting a finger, his sheer pressure pulverizes the rock into dust. Hyo is floored. It's official. Seol hasn't just learned the technique, he has completely mastered its power. The fact that he achieved this in only 6 months is nothing short of a miracle. During this incredibly short window of time, he has already mastered the art of perfectly dispersing true chi. Vast energy pooled within his core after mastering the circulation technique. Hyo then proposed the next step. They moved to the next phase. Unsol braced himself to cycle his chi, feeling immense gratitude for Hyo's guidance. He had blitzed through the first level in record time. Yet the hunger for more left Unsol feeling slow. 8 tiers stood between him and mastery. He was dead set on hitting level 2 before descending the peak. Fueled by raw willpower, Unsol forced a breakthrough, leaving Hyo absolutely floored. The master could not believe his eyes. Unsol had ascended to the second stage, the realm of pure bone and muscle. This tier is pure madness. It demands absolute physical reconstruction. But such a violent evolution places a crushing burden on the human frame. Predictably, agony struck. Blood trickled from Unsol's lips, but his grit was legendary as he refused to back down. Hyo lunged forward to steady him, barking orders to clear his mind and stay focused. Then, Hyo saw it. The boy's body could not contain the wild chi surging within. If this continued, the result would be total catastrophe. His internals were about to shred. Without a second thought, Hyo decided to sacrifice his own life essence. Slamming a palm onto Unsol's back, he funneled his vitality inward. When the dust finally settled, the transformation was complete. Seol felt a nuclear level of power burning inside. Turning back, he found Heol looking completely drained and strained. Panicked, Seol checked on his master, realizing the heavy price paid. Heol noticed the kid's genuine concern through the pain. He told him to chill. He was not allowed to exit the Wandering Beast Pavilion anyway until the training ended. Not until the training was complete. Seol stood stunned, finally seeing the warm heart beneath that cold, tough exterior. Despite the tough guy act, Seol felt a wave of gratitude and made a solemn, heartfelt vow to the man. He promised to never forget this debt. But Heol simply told him to scrub his very existence from his memory. Deja vu hit hard. Sawu had said the exact same thing. Then Heol laid down the real conditions for his repayment. The only repayment was total mastery of the breathing art all the way to reaching the 8th level, the legendary realm of great origin. With a steady breath, Seol swore to reach the pinnacle his master could not. He would surpass Heol, who had capped at stage 5. With stage 2 already cleared, the path was set. Hol declared his job done. Now it was time for Seol to dive into the core fundamentals of combat. He ordered Seol to scale the western cliffs. That jagged peak would be his new brutal training ground for war. He began his martial grind there. After a respectful bow, 3 months flew by in a flash of intense training. Suddenly, the elite Wind Cloud squad made their grand entrance. They descended upon the pavilion like a returning storm, rooftop hopping just to flex their status as the sect's top dogs. Their leader, Baekyeon, finally took center stage. He unleashed a suffocating aura, forcing Dan to appear. Slowly, Baekyeon unmasked, revealing a cold and sharp gaze. He spoke with stiff formality. Dan sighed, reminding him to drop the act and forget the annoying rules. Baekyeon doubled down, claiming the pavilion's discipline was already hanging by a very thin thread. He was actually looking for Dan with an axe to grind. He demanded an explanation for the recent recruitment. Why recruit a demon master against his warnings? Dan simply dropped the truth bomb about Seol's unexpected choice. The kid actually turned down the Fire Rain sect to join them. Baekyeon was visibly shook by the youngster's choice. It almost triggered a war. Dan teased that Baekyeon should be hyped that the legendary kid picked their side. Baekyeon was not buying it. He argued this move was why the rivals snubbed the other masters entirely. He exploded at Dan, pointing out they were already in the Demon Palace's crosshairs and in deep trouble. Adopting Seol was basically pouring gasoline on a bonfire. Dan just gave a mysterious knowing smirk at the comment. He reminded him that the pavilion could not care less about the petty politics of the Murim world. Their only obsession was the peak of martial arts. Baekyeon conceded, but demanded a meeting with the legendary rookie. The title of Demon Master was on the line after all. Meanwhile, Seol was already grinding with another master. He had linked up with Gowal, the legendary Grand Thief, and master of the lethal Swift Phantom style. Gowal bragged that his art was a death trap, leaving most students permanently crippled and broken. Their bodies just could not handle the insane speed. Gowal was sure Seol would fail just like the others. He expected another victim, but Seol mastered the entire style in a single month. He was an absolute legend. Though completely baffled, Gowal was low-key hyped to finally find a worthy successor to inherit his dark legacy. Faced with defeat, he decides it is finally time to shut down the dojo. Gowul turns to Unso, explaining that the weight of the future now rests entirely on him. He must perfect the remaining techniques himself to survive the trials ahead. Seeing the weight on his shoulders, Baek and Dan head out to check on the boy. They watch from a high cliff as Unso unleashes the Swift Phantom technique. Baek is convinced the kid has no chance as mastering this art is a total nightmare. His jaw drops, however, when he sees Unso blurring through the forms with impossible speed. He can hardly believe his eyes as the boy moves like a ghost. Stunned, he asks if Unso has been grinding this specific move since the very second he arrived at the pavilion. Dan shakes his head, revealing that Unso actually mastered a completely different technique first. The realization starts to hit Baek like a tidal wave. The wild rumors were true. Unso conquered the wild beast path in just 14 days, a feat that Dan solemnly confirms. Dan explains that Sawu handed over all his spiritual water, which is likely what allowed the boy to unlock his transcendental nerve so early. Baek isn't buying it, arguing that spiritual water alone could never grant someone this level of god-tier mastery. Since the Pavilion Master is currently locked away in isolation, Dan notes that he is the one forced to manage this chaotic situation. Baek mentions that the 10 demonic sects are absolutely livid over how the Demon Master's situation has unfolded so far. Apparently the whole program was a trap. It was designed to breed absolute monsters, capable of wiping out the Orthodox Masters in cold blood. Baek confirms the conspiracy, adding that many sects were clueless and accidentally sent their best successors into a literal death trap. Dan thinks they can handle it, but Baek warns him that a massive, unavoidable problem has already surfaced. It turns out the White Demon Temple's only heir, Kangmu Ryun, is dead, and Unso is the one who took him out. Dan doesn't feel an ounce of pity calling it a total skill issue, since every participant knew the lethal risks involved. Baek adds that it is not just one temple. The Fire Rain sect is also out for Unso's blood, and they are beyond furious. They are outraged that he used the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique without being one of their own disciples. They are demanding a brutal punishment, and Xion has already been made a scapegoat, losing his entire position because of it. Dan is shocked that they are still hunting the student even after they have already destroyed the master who taught him. Baek reveals their true plan. They want to drag Unso to a trial to see if he is actually worthy of the Demon Master title. If he fails to prove his worth, they will ensure he never holds a sword again for the rest of his life. Just then, Unso suddenly leaps into the conversation from his training ground. Dan gives him a nod, praising his relentless dedication. He introduces him to Baek, and Unso offers a respectful bow as always. Baek doesn't waste time and gets straight to the point. He says there is a heavy topic they need to discuss, but Dan immediately tries to shut him down, wanting to protect the boy. However, Unso cuts in, declaring that he is ready to take full responsibility for everything that happened. The two elders are stunned, realizing that Unso must have overheard every single detail of their private talk. Unso apologizes for eavesdropping, revealing he was using the chi vibrations from the wandering beast mind's eye to listen in. Baek is left in total disbelief, asking if the kid was really using a high-level detection art while simultaneously performing complex movement techniques. Unso simply confirms it, saying he was just following the vibrations like ripples on a lake. While Baek is completely rattled, Dan is starting to get used to the boy's logic-defying stunts. Baek smiles, realizing they have a true genius on their side, and suggests they put their full faith in the boy's potential. Dan is horrified that Baek wants to send Unso to the Demon Palace for a test, especially since they are trying to kill him. Baek argues that the Demon Palace is just a way for the White Demon Temple leader to save face without starting a war. This is why they chose the palace as a neutral site, rather than the hostile grounds of the Fire Rain or White Demon sects. Baek warns Dan that if they reject this request, the situation will only spiral into something much more violent. As the two continue to argue, Unso interrupts them with a firm look. He is ready to go. He reasons that since the sects are trying to fix their image, killing him during a formal test would only make them look worse. He adds that as a proud warrior of the Wandering Beast Pavilion, he won't be caught running from any challenge. Baek nods in agreement, telling Dan that this is the only way to get these people off their backs for good. Backed into a corner by both of them, Dan is finally forced to give in and agree to the plan. However, he tells Unso that if he survives this trial, he must make sure to settle the score with those bitter sects. Baek believes this is the ultimate chance for Unso to cement his legacy and silence the doubters once and for all. Dan finally nods, warning Unso that the path ahead is paved with blood, and he must be ready for anything. With a pact to bury the past, Unseol finally marches toward the legendary Demon Palace. Crossing the threshold, he senses a chilling shift from the last time he stood here. A silent guide escorts him deep into the heart of the palace's grand hall. He's told a high-ranking official awaits to take over his reception once inside the chamber. Unseol gazes at the massive hall, the iron-fisted center of all demonic administrative power. This place serves as the dark mirror to the Murim Alliance's strategic command center. Here he must face a trial of fire. Unseol boldly steps into the lion's den. There stands the Grand Hall Master Baek Junso, whose piercing gaze immediately locks onto Unseol. Junso praises his aura, admitting the rumors of Unseol's monstrous chi weren't exaggerated. He's grilled about the blood feud between the 10 demonic sects. Unseol wonders if they're even allies. Junso smirks, realizing the Wandering Beast Pavilion left the poor kid completely in the dark. He explains the Demon Palace is a massive coalition uniting the various demonic path sects. While their fates are entwined, they are far from being a single united family. Usually, a sect leader rules, but the previous palace master was a complete outsider. Friction is everywhere. Unseol finally sees the truth. This alliance is held together by threads. They're mere partners of convenience, and many sects secretly despise the palace's overbearing control. Junso drops a bombshell. The 10 Demon Masters contest was never about finding heirs. It was a project to breed cold-blooded assassins, meant to decapitate the Murim Alliance. Simply put, the competition was a trap to slaughter the elite leaders of the Orthodox world. The 10 demonic sects originally balked at the idea, refusing to join this bloody scheme. But the palace tightened the screws until the sects were forced to sacrifice their own disciples. High-tier disciples perished, and Unseol's unexpected survival has left the palace in a PR nightmare. Junseo reveals the exam is actually a death sentence meant to punish him. Cold-blooded. Asked if he understands, Unseol nods calmly. Junseo is impressed by the boy's suicidal bravery. Unseol cuts the small talk, demanding they get to the trial. Junseo brings up certain favors. 2 major sects pulled strings to grant him entry into the forbidden 10,000 Demonic Truth Pavilion. It's a legendary library of secrets. Junso tosses him a gleaming golden plaque, his VIP pass. The archives span 3 massive levels, but his pass only unlocks the lowest basic floor. Even so, 25,000 martial arts manuals await him within those dusty ancient shelves. Junseo notes that this knowledge could be the edge Unseol needs to survive. They're only being kind because they expect him to fail. It's all just for show. The trial is brutal. Survive 5 devastating strikes from a hand-picked martial arts master. The White Demon Temple itself chose the executioner for this deadly test. Surprisingly, the head instructor resigned just to ensure Unseol's path through the competition. When questioned, he cryptically replied that the results would speak for themselves very soon. Junseo is dying to see if the kid actually lives up to the hype. Plaque in hand, Unseol exits only to bump into a familiar face, Jin Gok. Shocked to see him here, Unseol learns Jin Gok has deep roots within the palace's hierarchy. He reveals he was the Hell Island sub because the Grand Hall Master was busy elsewhere. Jin Gok notices the Golden Pass and asks if he's prepping for the trial. Unseol confirms leading his former mentor to offer one final, crucial bit of wisdom. He warns that the Junghu is a pit of vipers where kindness always carries a hidden price. Every smile hides a blade, and every gift is a gilded trap. He leaves Unseol with a challenge: find the one chance for survival within this deadly scheme. Jin Gok places his ultimate bet on Unseol, trusting him to flip the script even while dancing with death. He drops some cryptic wisdom about roots and growth, and Unseol takes the advice to heart. Jin cheers him on as our hero finally reaches the legendary 10,000 demonic grounds. He enters the Truth Pavilion, a massive structure that is definitely not your average library. His jaw drops when he realizes every single scroll here is a high-tier martial arts manual. But after wandering for a bit, the realization hits him this whole place is a total trap. The shelves are packed with secret techniques, but mastering them in 24 hours is literally impossible. Diving in now would just waste time, which is exactly what his enemies are banking on. He clocks that the rival sects are trying to break his mental and mess with his focus. He needs to stay locked in. Suddenly, Jin's words about roots and growth flash through his mind. The light bulb goes off. Unseol sprints through the aisles until he snags a specific hidden volume. It is the Wandering Beast reversal technique. He flips it open, hyped for a massive power-up. But the contents leave him shook. Fast forward, the day of the high-stakes exam has finally arrived. Unseol hits the arena greeted by the stern gaze of the head supervisor Gok Gyobong. The Fire Rain Sword Sect's own Yu Unseol is already there watching him like a hawk. Joining them are Gok of the Wandering Beast Pavilion and the formidable warrior Gogumpyeong. Representing the White Demon Temple, Gok tells Unseol they are itching to test his true potential. As one of the 10 demon masters, he is the target. Gok turns to the rival representatives. He asks the big question: will they squash their beef if Unseol actually passes this nightmare? The reps smirk, promising to let the past stay buried if he manages to survive the trial anyway. Since everyone agrees, Gok kicks off the test and Go steps into the ring to start. The challenge is simple: survive 5 of Go's lethal strikes. But there is a deadly catch. Go was ordered to end him, but he feels a weird empathy for the Wandering Beast's image. His plan: just rip Unseol's arms off by move 5. Then he makes a sudden lunge. Go strikes without even a second of preparation. The dude's raw speed is absolutely cracked. The blow targets him directly, but Unseol blurs backward, barely dodging the opening move. Go does not let up, unleashing a flurry of branch strikes that force Unseol to sprint. Go is low-key impressed. Our boy is using his wild beast senses to read every movement, but Go warns him he is not safe yet. Before he can blink, the third move lands. It is like a downpour of death. The entire arena is blanketed in strikes meant to crush him. Unseol cannot tell the fakes from the real hits, so he decides to dodge everything. He kicks his speed into overdrive. A massive explosion rocks the arena as the dust kicks up. The smoke clears and Go is stunned. Unseol is standing tall with only a tiny scratch. He pulled off the swift phantom technique. Honestly, he would be dead if Go was fully serious. Go is fuming. He is disappointed that he has not landed a decent blow on the kid. At this rate, his plan to disarm Unseol is looking like a total pipe dream. Time to get sweaty. Go preps his 4th move, the devastating White Demon Heart Strike. A blinding flash erupts. Unseol feels totally cornered, doubt starting to creep into his mind. He knows if this hits it, is game over. In that split second, he recalls the book. He was shocked when he first read it, seeing pages dedicated to roasting his own pavilion. However, the latter half of the scroll detailed every single weakness of the Wandering Beast path. He realizes the insults were just a filter to keep outsiders from reading the real secrets. The manual taught him a vital lesson. A true martial artist must sense, think, and adapt. He is expected to crank those senses up to 11 exactly when the situation turns dire. With death staring him down, Unseol boosts his perception to the absolute limit, just in time. He ghosts the heart strike technique. The crowd goes silent, completely floored by his insane reflexes. Go is shell-shocked. Even the legendary grandmasters of the White Demon Temple find that strike nearly impossible to evade. The brutal reality finally sinks in. This is exactly why the rival sects were so desperate to erase Unseol from existence. He realizes that if this boy survives, he'll grow into a monstrous threat that will eventually destroy them all. Go decides to end it here. He prepares his most lethal art, the White Demon Divine Serpent, as his final move. Lunging for the kill, Go watches as Yoon Seol barely dodges the initial strike, but the danger has only just begun. The weapon possesses a mind of its own, relentlessly homing in on Yoon Seol with a predatory thirst for his soul. This Divine Serpent is a cursed blade that refuses to stop until it tastes blood. Go smiles, sensing an imminent decapitation. Trapped with no escape, Yoon Seol gambles everything on one final card, the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique. He braces for impact as the collision erupts into a blinding explosion of golden electricity and raw power. However, the shield falters. The serpent relentlessly bores through his defense and pierces Yoon Seol's shoulder. The massive impact sends Yoon Seol flying into the distance, yet his spirit refuses to let him fall. He crashes onto his knees. Even though his right arm is completely paralyzed, he still hasn't given up the fight. Gripping his blade with his left hand, Yoon Seol glares upward with the terrifying, dangerous intensity of a predator. Go is momentarily impressed, but that feeling is quickly replaced by pure, unadulterated terror of the boy's potential. He knows he has to finish this now. Leaving Yoon Seol alive is a death sentence for his own future. Just as he's about to unleash another lethal strike, the representative from the Wandering Beast Pavilion seizes his arm. Gak coldly reminds him that his 5 allotted moves have already been exhausted. Go snarls, ripping his hand away. He tries to act insulted by the touch, but Gak meets his rage with a lethal, unwavering glare. Gak warns him that he has no reason to honor their alliance if Go continues to behave so dishonorably. Suddenly, the representative from the Fire Rain sect cuts in, trying to manipulate the situation to their advantage. He claims Yoon Seol stole a secret technique and demands they scrap the test results immediately. Gak shuts him down instantly, pointing out that there were never any rules against using that specific martial art. Gak then adds a stinging remark, stating that Xion would be beaming with pride at Yoon Seol's mastery. The representative seethes with rage, feeling as though Gak is openly mocking his entire sect's heritage. Gak expertly plays them, noting that Go's ultimate white demon technique was neutralized by a fire rain art. He cunningly suggests that the only explanation is that the fire rain style is vastly superior to the white demons. This calculated move instantly creates a bitter and irreversible rift between the two rival factions. Trapped by their own pride, the Fire Rain sect has no choice but to accept the compliment and back off. Since they cannot pass up the title of being the superior sect, they are forced to drop their complaints. With the opposition silenced, Gak informs the crowd that the original promise will be honored to the letter. He officially declares that Yoon Seol has reclaimed his title as a demon master and his right to carry a sword. After the announcement, Gak turns to congratulate the victor, but he stops dead in his tracks. He notices Yoon Seol's vacant stare and realizes the boy actually fainted while still standing in a combat stance. Later, Yoon Seol awakens in a lavish, unfamiliar room, wondering why he keeps waking up in such exclusive quarters. He's completely disoriented and confused by the high-end surroundings he finds himself in once again. His mind immediately races back to the test, consumed by the agonizing fear that he might have failed. Since the situation is out of his hands, he decides to sit and circulate his chi to calm his nerves. He suddenly discovers a massive reservoir of true chi within him, remembering the incredible gift Hyo left behind. He now possesses 10 years' worth of concentrated energy that was previously locked away in his system. The brutal pressure of the battle has finally forced his blocked acupoints to burst wide open. In a flash of enlightenment, Yoon Seol masters the 3rd level of the reverse polarity cultivation technique. He has attained the mythical state of being completely impervious to both fire and ice. An attendant suddenly interrupts his meditation, informing him that he's being held at the Demon Gathering Pavilion. This is the residence of the Elder Pavilion Master. Yoon Seol is floored, having expected a standard infirmary. He begins to shake, fully aware of how insane and dangerous this new development truly is. This Pavilion Elder is the infamous Blood Demon, a powerhouse holding a seat among the 3 demons and 3 venerables. These are the true gods reigning at the martial peak. Suddenly, the attendant reveals her name is Jin Sul. The Elder has summoned Eun Sol to the inner sanctum, a command that cranks his anxiety up to an 11. She warns that the Elder is waiting. As they walk, they pass through a garden so stunning it feels unreal. Eun Sol is low-key mesmerized by the view before finally entering the hall, where the Elder offers him some tea. Instead of just accepting praise for his dual-sect success, Yoon Seol first honors the Elder for his hidden support. After the tea is served, the Elder tests him on the flavor. Yoon Sol keeps it 100% real. He admits he's no tea connoisseur and lacks a refined palate. This raw honesty instantly sparks the Elder's interest. Then the bombshell drops. He's Jiak Bong. Yoon Seol is floored. He's sitting with the legendary demon himself. This is the monster who turned the Jianghu into a graveyard for countless righteous masters. Without that introduction, he'd just look like any other grandpa. But once the formalities end, the vibe gets heavy. The Elder notes Yoon Seol is a wild card. Despite his late start, his physical foundation is absolutely insane. His body is incredibly fluid, and his internal reserves are deep thanks to his grandfather's unique breathing secrets. Jiak Bong reveals he moved this meeting to his private study instead of the medicinal hall for a reason. This was for a strictly confidential talk. Jiak Bong then drops a massive high-stakes proposition. He wants Yun Seol to join the Demon Palace immediately after finishing his stint at the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Jiak Bong admits the pavilion is the outlier of the demonic world marching to its own drum. He's offering a golden ticket. In 3 years, Yun Seol won't just be a member, he'll be elite. Jiak Bong plans to personally vouch for him to the palace master, securing a spot in the Dark Heaven Squad. This is a massive flex. The Dark Heaven Squad is the absolute peak alongside the Heaven Slaying units. Joining them is a one-way ticket to the top. His path to becoming a demonic high ranker is guaranteed. Jiak Bong waits for the inevitable yes, certain the offer is far too good to refuse. But Yun Seol doesn't even blink. He rejects the offer instantly, leaving the legendary demon completely stunned. Calmly, Yun Seol explains that true growth requires the constant threat of death. It's the only way to evolve. A guaranteed future only breeds weakness and complacency. He wants to earn his strength through the fire. Jiak Bong loses it and erupts in laughter. He absolutely vibes with Yun Seol's warrior-first mentality. Yun Seol has the exact grit a true martial artist needs, but even the elder's joy is dangerous. Pure pressure radiates from the elder's laughter, making Yun Seol's very soul tremble with the intensity. I'll be watching, the elder vows. He's hyped to see the monster Yun Seol becomes in 3 years. With a promise to reunite, the meeting ends. Yun Seol realizes he's been dismissed and bows out. He pays his respects and vanishes. Suddenly, a hidden master steps out from the shadows. The master admits he's never seen anyone turn down such a power play. Jiak Bong just smirks. They need to keep a close eye on him to see which side the boy eventually chooses. Once he's safely away, Yun Seol finally exhales. He was literally inches away from his own funeral. Just being near that monster was a death sentence. One wrong move, and he would have been history. His nerves are still fried from the pressure, his mind racing to process the encounter with the legend. A tap on the shoulder jolts him back to reality. He realizes he's already back in the town's safe embrace. He scans the crowd, soaking in the mundane, peaceful energy he's been missing for so long. It finally sinks in, he's tangled up in a dangerous life he never saw coming. Suddenly, his senses flare. He's being followed. He immediately hits a weapon shop to gear up. He asks for a basic practice blade, something cheap and disposable, for the coming fight. The clerk points him to a pile of steel in the corner. Yun Seol picks his weapon and leaves. He lures the tail to a quiet spot outside the city walls, ready to settle this. "Show yourselves," he commands. Instantly, a squad of masked assassins drops from the trees. They're impressed by his sharp instincts. But the circle is already closing in around him. The leader reveals their mission. They're here to snuff him out before his training is complete. Yun Seol stays ice cold. He gives them one chance to walk away before things get bloody. The assassins just sneer. They're convinced Yun Seol is the one who's about to meet his maker. Since they won't take the hint, Yun Seol decides to let his blade do the talking. He unsheathes his steel as the killers drop into formation, still thinking they have the upper hand. Yun Seol is boxed in as enemies prep a mass assault. He keeps his cool, refusing to move recklessly. Suddenly, they swarm him with murderous intent. Yun Seol reacts instantly, parrying the opening wave of steel. He notices the assassins are perfectly synced, unleashing a relentless storm of strikes without any pause. It's obvious this squad has been spilling blood together for a very long time. Their harmony is lethal. Yet despite their perfect teamwork, Yun Seol's sharp eyes spot a fatal flaw. His predatory instincts scream that their power isn't uniform. He sees massive gaps between their skill levels. He exploits those cracks instantly. Before they can blink, he takes one of them off the board. The assassins freeze in shock. These Wudong sect warriors never expected their pattern to be solved. They thought their elite techniques were beyond his reach. Now, a cold dread begins to settle in. They fear the Demon Palace is teaching masters how to dismantle orthodox formations with ease. Desperate, the leader bellows for the third formation. They have no idea Yun Seol is steps ahead. He isn't tracking patterns, he's hunting their individual weaknesses. As they charge, history repeats itself. Yun Seol carves through 2 more easily. The survivors panic, terrified by his high-level swordplay. He coldly clarifies that he isn't even using traditional martial arts to dismantle them. This is a raw struggle for survival. He tells them flatly that their overconfidence is their downfall. They focused on being superior, but Yun Seol was busy fighting for his very existence. Everything is on the line. The squad leader begins to tremble as his reality crumbles. He believed they were the predators. Suddenly the roles have flipped, they are now the helpless prey. Yun Seol is now the hunter. Realizing he is a devil, the weight of their mistake sinks in. One assassin begs to retreat. Infuriated, his own partner strikes him down for showing weakness. Branding him a coward, the leader is mocked by Yun Seol about honor versus staying alive. The leader snaps back, claiming they don't fight for selfish glory like the demonic sect. Their obsession with honor triggers Yun-sol's rage. The memory of his father's coffin flashes back. He lunges with brutal ferocity. The leader barely registers his movement until it's far too late. The squad is skewered in seconds. Collapsing, the leader gasps that Yun-sol has truly become a monster. He spews curses from beyond the grave, but Yun-sol remains unfazed by the hollow threats. Only those in the dirt lose. Yun-sol is stunned that blood must flow even outside Hell Island. He is still trapped in a vicious cycle of slaughter, with no exit in sight. This violence is simply the down payment for his absolute vengeance. He isn't worried at all. Suddenly, a carriage rolls up. Baek steps out, looking satisfied with the carnage he sees. Yun-sol is floored. How on earth did Baek manage to track him down so fast? Baek shrugs it off as child's play. He then wanders over to inspect the fresh corpses. His face darkens at the implications. For now, he insists they return to the Beast Pavilion. Back home, Dan greets them with high praise, expressing how proud he is of Yun-sol. Word of the brutal trial reached him. Dan acknowledges the difficulty, and Yun-sol confirms it. He mentions being hosted at the Elder Pavilion, sending a shockwave through Baek and Dan. Gaining an audience there is legendary. Dan finally understands why rival sects accepted the results. Even the White Demon Temple backed down. Yun-sol asks if this Elder Master is really that important. Dan explains the power struggle between the Palace Master, the Elder Pavilion, and the 10 sects. It's a three-way split for control. Baek adds that the Elder Pavilion holds terrifying influence. It houses the legendary masters of old. But there's a much darker secret behind their power. Master Jokbung has been quietly assembling a private army of his own for years. His explosive performance earned a personal meeting. Yun-sol realizes he is in the big leagues now. When Dan asks for a report, Baek interrupts to reveal the truth about the deadly ambush. Fury erupts from Dan. He can't believe anyone would dare to touch his disciple. Judging by those wicked blades, these guys are definitely the general strategist's personal hit squad. It's down to two possibilities: the lethal autumn wind or the elusive flying cloud. Dan clocks the scheme they were prepping the general strategist to be their ultimate fall guy. Still, Dan's disgusted. Targeting a kid who just stepped foot into the Wandering Beast Pavilion, that's low. Baek drops the truth. Yun-sol's genius has already put a massive target on his back. To them, he's a future threat that needs to be snuffed out before his power truly awakens. It's insane the kid hasn't even mastered the basics, yet the 10 demonic sects are already stalking him. Even the Murim Alliance has joined the hunt. It's a gamble, but Dan knows this fire will forge him. Yun-sol steps up with a sudden request, and Dan gives the young prodigy the floor. He's heard the rumors, the founding Divine Squad, the pavilion's most ruthless elite cleaners. His goal, to dive straight into the lion's den and master martial arts through bloody real-world experience. Baek's jaw drops. That squad isn't just tough, it's a meat grinder full of the pavilion's most violent psychos. Their leader So Ji-hyun is a literal firebrand known for her explosive temper and savage aggression. Word is, she's executed her own recruits for being weak, masking the murders as combat tests. But Yun-sol doesn't blink. If he dies, it just proves he wasn't strong enough to survive anyway. He's choosing the path of most resistance to force his growth into absolute overdrive. He hungers for the front lines, craving the sight of true masters clashing in life-or-death combat. Baek's hesitant, but Dan makes a bold call. He's putting his full faith in the boy's resolve. Seeing that unwavering confidence, Dan assigns him to the squad's next nightmare, Wind Thunder Valley. Dan sees this as the ultimate trial for a rookie, though Baek is still vibrating with worry. Recognizing Dan's finality, Baek backs down, heading off to deliver the news to Joan with a heavy heart. At the 1000 Success Inn, Baek drops the bombshell on Joan. She's getting a new recruit. Joan's reaction is instant fire. She's a warrior, not a nanny, and she rejects the boy immediately. When Baek reveals it's a direct order from the Vice Pavilion, Master Joan prepares to storm Dan's office. She's ready to scream defiance until Baek flashes the legendary Heavenly Wolf plaque, the sigil of ultimate authority. Joan slams the table in fury, knowing she's officially cornered. Baek warns her not to sleep on the kid. He's already survived the carnage of the Fire Rain sect. Despite the hype, Joan remains unconvinced. She thinks the higher-ups have finally lost their minds. Fine. She'll take him, but only to personally drag him through hell and see if he breaks. It's time to see if this prodigy actually has the soul of a true wandering beast. Now about Wind Thunder Valley, it's a den of heretics who live and breathe forbidden martial arts. They sculpt their bodies through gruesome modifications, fueling their twisted strength with a dark trafficking ring. They're so vile that even the orthodox and unorthodox sects keep their distance from this filth. Yet they survive, protected by a valley that's less of a landscape and more of a god-tier fortress. Even the elite squads are sweating this one, but they have no choice but to advance. Arriving at the precipice, Joan realizes the intel didn't do this nightmare justice. The wind here is a literal weapon howling with enough force to blow them into the abyss. One wrong move and the guards will sever the bridge, sending everyone to a rocky grave. Joan's fuming. A suicide mission is hard enough without having to protect a total rookie. She turns to her second-in-command, Jae-woon, who steps up to handle the impossible task. With a cryptic sign, Jae-woon lets fly a barrage of knives, slicing through the air with precision. The blades thread the needle through a tiny vent, silencing the guards before they can even scream. Yoon Seol is paralyzed with awe. That wasn't just a throw, it was the legendary body blade union. Having studied it in the archives, he realizes Jae-woon is a true monster in combat. When the squad asks if the path is clear, Jae-woon simply nods. The hunt begins. Suspicion hangs heavy. A hidden mechanism might be lurking on that bridge. Seeking to shield her elite squad, Yeon hatches a plan. She ruthlessly tosses Yoon Seo into the line of fire. Go first, she commands. Without a second thought, the boy steps forward. Approaching the edge, a violent gale threatens to tear him from the path. This wind is no joke. Balance is impossible here. To survive, Yoon Seo taps into the core rooting absorption technique. His feet lock onto the wood like iron. The squad watches in awe as he defies the storm. Yeon, however, remains cold. She refuses to acknowledge the skill radiating from the rookie. Asterisk clack times. A chilling metallic echo rings out. The trap is sprung. Lethal mechanisms awaken at the far end. Projectiles scream through the air, aiming for his heart. But Yoon Seo keeps his composure under fire. He takes flight to evade the steel. Then mid-air, he defies physics by launching himself even higher. Using his own leg as a platform, he surges upward. Jae-woon's jaw drops at the impossible sight. It's a legendary Qinggong move, the air step, kicking off the top of his own foot to fly. A double jump in mid-air, Jae-woon can't believe a kid possesses such high-tier martial mastery. But the danger isn't over. A second wave of death closes in. The squad prepares for the worst. They think he's finished. Suddenly, he ignites the swift phantom skill, blurring into a ghostly streak. He teleports across the gap, sticking the landing perfectly. The onlookers are left in absolute silence. Storming the guard post, he passes the corpses left by Jae-woon. His eyes scan for the master switch. There it is. Without missing a beat, he slams the lever down, silencing the deadly machinery. Emerging from the shadows, he signals the clear. The path is safe. The trap is dead. Jae-woon and Ji-hoon are reeling. That technique was high risk, high reward. A total gamble on his life. One slight misstep would have shattered his legs forever. Even Yeon is starting to feel the pressure. She's forced to wonder, who is this kid really? They push forward, finally entering the valley's depths. Trekking through a narrow pass, Jae-woon can't stop praising him. That footwork was straight up legendary, kid. Master Go taught me well, Yoon Seo admits humbly. But Yeon's sharp voice slices through the praise. Don't hype him up. It was basic, she scoffs. Jae-woon whispers, don't sweat her. She's always salty. That's just her vibe. But secretly, Yeon's heart is racing. Yoon Seo's survival skills were actually top tier. He dodged death, sure, but the real trial hasn't even begun. She won't give him an inch. She's determined to prove he's nothing but garbage. Soon, the group reaches the shores of a lake. Without a word, Yeon plunges into the dark depths. Yoon Seo stands there, completely ghosted and confused. Yo, what's the move? He asks a teammate. The man realizes Yoon Seo is totally out of the loop. He was a last-minute add-on, so he missed the briefing. The veteran breaks down the suicide mission. This lake is a portal to Wind Thunder Valley. Swim through the tunnel and you're in. But watch out, this water is cursed with frost. You must burn your chi just to stay alive. You've got 15 minutes. If your internal flame flickers out, the cold will claim you instantly. You'll freeze solid and sink to a watery grave. The man looks Yoon Seo dead in the eye. Just sit this one out, kid. Your chi isn't ready for this level of extreme sub-zero torture. It's too much for your age. Attempting this is basically a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Save the worry, Yoon Seo interrupts. He isn't backing down now. This is exactly what he signed up for. He came here to prove himself. Without a flinch, he takes a final breath and dives. Submerged, the water is thick with jagged ice crystals. It's like swimming through a freezer full of knives. Now he gets the warning. But wait, something feels incredibly strange about this icy abyss. The elite squad is gasping, crippled by the frost's bite. The crystals are draining their very lives. But Yoon Seo, he hasn't even sparked his chi, yet he feels absolutely nothing. No chill, no pain. Then it hits him. His recent breakthrough changed his biology. He's evolved past the reach of temperature. He has reached the divine realm of elemental invulnerability. He underestimated this skill, but it's a total game changer. Talk about a clutch power-up. Gliding through the frozen death, he finally breaks the surface on the other side. He spots the team deep in meditation, desperately cycling their chi. Meanwhile, Yoon Seol feels zero pressure, casually strolling up to them. The squad is absolutely floored. They can't wrap their heads around how he's totally unfazed. Even Jian is shaking in disbelief. Yoon Seol skips the chi workout, since his inner energy is already rock solid. June starts realizing that Dan's move was calculated. Maybe there was a hidden motive for sending him here. Either way, June's hyped to see what this guy is truly capable of, because the true trial is just getting started. Once the team's back on their feet, June gives the order to move out. She fires them up, declaring the target is within reach. It's time to unleash the overwhelming might of the founding Divine Squad. The team is locked in and ready. Seconds later, total chaos erupts as the squad clashes head-on with the enemy forces. These shirtless freaks look like total maniacs with obsidian veins pulsing through their skin in the most terrifying way possible. It's a straight-up nightmare. One crazed zealot lunges at Yoon Seol, desperately trying to rip the sword from his iron grip, but Yoon Seol counters instantly, slicing deep across the guy's chest. He howls in agony but snaps right back into a stance. Flashing a twisted grin, the maniac throws a heavy punch fueled by pure rage, forcing Yoon Seol to dive out of harm's way. Turns out these are the power-seizing demons, monstrous creations birthed from forbidden drugs and extreme physical experiments. They're literally numb to pain. No matter how many holes you put in them, they just keep coming like relentless terminators. This leaves Yoon Seol completely stumped. How do you even take down a monster that refuses to stay dead? Jun spots his hesitation and barks an order, screaming at him to get his head in the game and fall back. Realizing he's just a liability right now, Yoon Seol listens and retreats, while hanging back in the rear lines. He witnesses her raw, savage power as she absolutely shreds the opposition. Suddenly, it clicks for Yoon Seol why he's here. He's here to soak up knowledge from true masters in the heat of combat. From this second on, everything changes. He's going to analyze every move his seniors make and steal their techniques to forge his own legendary path. While he's locked into observation mode, a demon charges him, but Yoon Seol stays light on his feet, dodging with ease. He realizes staying out of the way is his best bet, making sure he doesn't mess up the squad's perfect rhythm. Since the team's already crushing it, Yoon Seol decides this is the perfect front row seat to study the founding Divine Squad's skills. He watches in awe as June effortlessly takes heads with that massive blade. The sheer lethality of her style is absolutely insane. She's ending lives in a single stroke. He can't quite grasp the logic behind it because this definitely isn't basic swordsmanship. It's far from standard. It feels more like a refined sword art packed with precise stabs and complex twisting maneuvers. He realizes his initial theory was totally off. To figure out her secret, he locks his eyes on her even harder. He's hunting for clues. Suddenly, a demon blitzes him, and Yoon Seol instinctively mirrors the movement he just saw from June. He cleaves the demon in half exactly like her. It hits him. This isn't some fixed routine. It's a dynamic, high-level skill. You have to adapt on the fly to crush your opponent. Once you reach peak mastery, your blade isn't bound by rules. Forms and set moves become meaningless. At that god-tier level, you can craft a perfect strike from any possible stance. It's all about the intent behind the grip. Yoon Seol finally sees it. June isn't following a script at all. She's just hunting for every tiny opening in the demon's defense and exploiting them with surgical precision. Now, it's his turn to test the theory. June quickly picks up on the fact that the rookie is low-key copying her. Yoon Seol shuts his eyes, takes a calming breath, and waits for the enemy to enter his fatal strike zone. The moment they're in range, he lets it rip, but he quickly realizes his current limit is hit pretty fast. He can only manage 2 slashes right now. That's a huge gap compared to June, who can easily unleash 9. June is absolutely stunned. This kid just manifested a 2 slashes in 1 strike technique just by peeking at her work. She's in total disbelief. It took her 2 grueling years to master that, and he just did it on the fly. Yoon Seol knows 2 is his max for now, but the underlying logic of the technique is already burned into his mind. With June's secret decoded, he shifts his gaze to Jae-woon's combat style. Even Jae-woon starts feeling the rookie's intense stare. Yoon Seol is now locked onto him like a predator. But Jae-woon is cocky certain that his skills are far beyond imitation. He's sure his martial arts are uncopyable. Unlike the leader's style, his own foundation is built purely on the savage beast path. Jae-woon isn't sweating it at all. After all, how can someone copy the intricate art of lethal flying daggers just by looking? There's zero chance the kid mimics this after one glance. To drive the point home, Jae-woon dives into a crowd of enemies. He systematically shreds them to pieces, flexing his superiority just to show Yoon Seol that some levels are simply unreachable for a rookie. Jae-woon whips around only to find Yoon Seo shredding enemies with the exact same movements he just used. But instead of lethal daggers, Yoon Seo wields a wooden blade. This is the secret of the dual-wielding mind art. It grants the user total mastery over 2 distinct styles simultaneously. Jae-woon is left absolutely speechless by the display. While most would obsess over the flying daggers, Yoon Seol refused to be restricted by such basic thinking. He didn't just copy the tools, he completely decoded the essence of Jae-woon's martial logic. Even so, Yoon Seol isn't satisfied, feeling he hasn't yet tapped into the full potential of these stolen skills. Without the necessary raw power, he realizes that mastering Jae-woon's complex techniques won't happen overnight. Honestly, without the secrets he uncovered in the hidden archives, he wouldn't have managed even this much. With the squad leaders neutralized, Yoon Seol shifts his cold gaze toward the next target on the field. He tracks a warrior's movements, noticing how even his simplest strikes explode with a terrifying amount of concentrated force. Realizing that mere observation has reached its limit, Yoon Seol decides he needs a more hands-on approach to learn. He drifts toward a fresh corpse to examine the impact points, leaving the nearby squad member completely bewildered. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he finally cracks the code, just as a shadow looms behind him. This fool thinks Yoon Seol is distracted and wide open, but that's going to be his final mistake. In one fluid motion, Yoon Seol buries steel in the man's skull and carves him up like it's nothing. He finally sees it. The warrior pumps true chi into the blade at the exact microsecond of impact for maximum destruction. Having seen enough for his collection, Yoon Seol prepares to move, but then the enemy's main leader finally appears. With a theatrical flair, he vows to erase Yeon's entire squad before hurling a toxic violet projectile at them. It's lethal poison. As it clouds the ranks, Yeon immediately takes command to prevent her team from being wiped out. She charges through the haze, shredding the poisonous mist before delivering a devastating slash to the leader's chest. He's forced to throw up his hands in a desperate block, while Yeon notices Eun-seo is still watching. He hasn't looked away since the first drop of blood was spilled. In that moment, Yeon finally admits the truth. She hated acknowledging how insane Eun-seo's talent is, especially since he's just a beginner in the martial world. She wasn't ready to accept his genius, but looking at him now, she can't help but crack a smile. There's no denying it anymore. Eun-seo is a monster. Seeing her smile during their duel absolutely enrages the enemy leader. He's fuming, unable to believe she has the audacity to treat their life-or-death struggle like a casual walk in the park. In a blind rage, he hurls his most potent toxin, but Yeon swats the attack aside like a bothersome insect. Before he can even react, her blade finds his palm, unleashing a massive wave of internal destruction. The impact surges through his arm, instantly liquefying his organs and ending his life on the spot. Finish the rest, Yeon commands her squad, having already deleted the main threat with zero effort. A week later at the pavilion, Eun-seo is hitting a wall. He's been grinding techniques without the basic foundation. He knows his cultivation has reached new heights, but he can feel the cracks in his fundamental understanding. Before attempting his next major breakthrough, he needs to stabilize his core. He sets off toward the mountains. He seeks out Master Hyo, who greets him with a warm smile, already sensing the boy's massive growth. Word of his battlefield heroics has spread, but Eun-seo remains humble, crediting his success to Hyo's initial guidance. When Hyo asks if he's here for cultivation secrets, Eun-seo is stunned. The old man read his mind perfectly. "You're missing the basics," Hyo notes. "It's only natural for a genius like you to hit a bottleneck eventually." He just didn't expect the kid to reach this point so incredibly fast. Hyo beams like a proud father. Hyo probes the boy's core and nearly chokes. Eun-seo is packing over 60 years of raw internal energy. That childhood chi has undergone a legendary transformation, evolving into the rare and powerful antipolar true chi. His dormant vessels are fully awakened. Seeing the boy's thirst for knowledge, Hyo begins the ultimate lore dump. Above the first rate sits the peak realm, where the physical body and inner pool reach their absolute limits. Transcending even that boundary leads to the pinnacle of the arts. Eun-seo has mastered the supreme peak. But beyond those legends lies a mythic territory known only as the ultimate divine realm. At that transcendent stage, a warrior gains absolute dominion over both the physical world and the spirit realm. One can even shatter the shackles of internal energy and transcend the limits of the human vessel. Stunned, Eun-seo asks if a power even greater exists. Hyo nods solemnly. He reveals that reaching the absolute peak of martial mastery is known as the legendary Infinite Realm. Only two titans have famously ascended to this godlike stage, the Morim Alliance leader and the Great Demon Palace master. Eun-seo's jaw drops. The very rulers who dominate the Morim world also stand at the absolute summit of martial might. Hyo maps out the hierarchy below those two legends are the 3 demons, 3 venerables, 4 divines, and 7 kings. Every single one of them has touched the Infinite Realm. Suddenly, Eun-seo realizes just how massive the gap truly is. But Hyo isn't finished. He reveals a final mythical stage that stands above all the divine intent realm. In this state, a warrior fuses with the source of existence and perceives the very will of the heavens. It is a level of power no mortal has ever achieved. Hyo warns Eun-seo that such heights are currently untouchable for him. Right now, he's barely scratching the surface of the peak realm. Hol reminds him that he has only mastered the 3rd stage. Through the reverse polarity technique, he'll finally manifest impenetrable body protective true ki once he hits the 4th stage. Reaching that milestone marks his entry into the supreme peak realm. But the 5th stage holds even greater potential. There, he will physically manifest his internal energy. By the 6th stage, his power will begin to flow eternally through his veins. Energy will surge without end. Then at the 7th stage, he finally shatters every physical limitation holding him back. Finally, at the 8th and final stage, he will wield the raw, untamed power of Mother Nature itself. This grants him total dominion over all life. Eun-seo looks baffled, and Hyo honestly confesses his own knowledge has limits. He lacks the words to explain such divinity, having only reached the late phases of the 5th realm himself. Sensing Yunso's burning curiosity, Heol decides the young warrior is finally ready to descend into the treacherous Jianghu. Yunseo is stunned by the mentor's sharp intuition. Heol just smirks, he's seen the fire growing in the boy's eyes. Hol knew those questions meant Yunseo was restless. Yunseo admits it, realizing he needs more than just meditation to grow. Only through blood and steel can he level up quickly. The Jianghu is his only path to true combat-hardened strength. It is far more logical to hunt for his father's killer in the wild than to waste time in the palace. Before Unseo leaves his safety net, Heol insists that raw power isn't enough. He needs high-level intelligence to survive. He points him toward Wang, the keeper of secrets. Unseo bows deeply, his heart full of gratitude for the old man. Heol warns him that the world outside is a viper's nest. Despite the danger, Unseo flashes a confident, fearless grin. After wishing his mentor well, Unseo heads straight to the forge to meet the mysterious blacksmith Wangul. Wang slides a worn book across the table. When Unseo questions it, Wang says it holds every answer he seeks. Unseo's eyes widen. The pages are packed with the Jianghu's volatile politics and the deep secrets of every major sect. It details clan bloodlines, forbidden techniques, and top-tier intelligence on the world's most famous martial masters. It even breaks down the 10 demon masters. Unseo is speechless. This book is a goldmine of forbidden classified knowledge. No simple blacksmith should possess such data. Unseo stares at Wang, questioning the man's true identity and hidden past. Wang assures him that this knowledge is his ultimate shield. Study it well, and no trap will ever catch him. Burn it when you're done, Wang commands. Unseo realizes this blacksmith might be his most pivotal ally yet. Seizing the moment, Unseo leans in with a burning question. The two settle in for a serious deep-dive conversation. Wang's eyebrows arch when Unseo describes a bizarre technique shifting bones and muscles for a lethal upward strike. A gruesome move meant to sever limbs while infecting victims with a flesh-rotting corrosive poison using hidden blades. Wang is genuinely impressed. Why would someone with elite swordsmanship resort to cowardly poisons and hidden projectiles? He drops a bombshell. This killer is likely a high-level spy, masking their true martial identity from the world. Unseo freezes. This means his target might not even belong to the demonic path after all. Wang nods. The poison and hidden weapons were likely smoke and mirrors to frame an innocent party. The killer is an outsider. As the truth sinks in, Unseo feels a cold chill run down his spine. He must now watch his back around the righteous sects. The culprit left a false trail to deceive everyone. How do you find a ghost who hides in plain sight? Suddenly, Wang offers a proposal Unseo can't refuse. After finalizing their secret plan, Unseo makes his way toward Dan's office with a heavy heart. He delivers the final word. He's heading into the Jianghu to uncover the bloody hidden truth. Yunsol drops a bombshell. He is heading into the Jianghu. Dan's jaw hits the floor, questioning if the hellish trial with the founding Divine Squad was not enough to satisfy him. Yunsol admits that while his time with the Divine Squad proved priceless, he craves raw life-or-death combat to truly evolve his martial arts to the next level. Dan respects the grind, but there is a catch. As Vice Master, he cannot just let Yunsol wander off. He explains that Jianghu entry requires a formal squad affiliation, a rule that is strictly enforced by the higher-ups. Plus, he needs the captain's green light. Yunsol smirks, revealing his true target, joining the notorious Salvation Squad. Dan's blood boils instantly. He snaps, demanding to know how Yunsol even discovered such a shadowy organization. Yunsol remains calm, pinning it on Wang, the very man who tipped him off about the Salvation Squad's existence. They are the ghosts of the underworld specialists in cold-blooded assassinations, high-stakes kidnappings, and looting vital assets. They handle the dirty work the Demon Palace won't touch officially. Wang is dead certain that this path is the ultimate shortcut for Yunsol's goals. But Yunsol has his own agenda. He knows that. Hunting the killer becomes child's play within a squad that breathes danger and thrives on lethal missions. Constant brushes with death are exactly what he needs. Yunsol believes this pressure will force a breakthrough in his power. Dan explodes, flat out, rejecting the request. But Yunsol is already 10 steps ahead. He knows the price. Joining means his entire identity is wiped clean. He becomes a nameless shadow. Every mission is a gamble with the Reaper. Dan sighs, confirming the squad is the palace's disposal unit. They handle the filthiest contracts. Enlisting means severing every tie, abandoning your rank, and ditching your name. You are totally alone out there, no backup, no mercy. Dan warns that this squad is a graveyard for criminals seeking redemption or desperate souls hunting for gold. Dan stares him down, asking if he's truly ready. Yunsol does not blink. He needs explosive growth, and he needs it now, no matter the cost. If the Salvation Squad is the forge he needs, he will dive into the flames without a second thought. He reminds Dan that the 10 demon masters are just chess pieces meant to crush the orthodox sects. He is just doing his job. Dan nods, acknowledging the brutal reality of their dark world. Most demonic sects view their masters as disposable tools to be ground down for personal glory. However, the Wandering Beast Pavilion is built differently. Dan wants Yunsol to be more than a tool. He wants him to be a true brother. Yoon-sol freezes as Dan's genuine concern finally breaks through. He feels the weight of Dan's worry. But Yoon-sol argues that this bond is the exact reason why he must enlist. Confused, Dan asks for an explanation. Yoon-sol notes that based on his observations, true power is not forged in the safety of a cozy nest or under a master's protective wing. Dan sees the fire in his eyes and knows he is lost. He relents, but with one strict condition: 1 year only. Yoon-sol bows in gratitude, but Dan adds that he can bail the second he is learned enough. The doors to the pavilion will always be open for his eventual return. Before he leaves, Dan drops some wisdom. Since he is diving into the Jongho, there is one major problem. That face is a magnet for trouble. He is arguably the most high-profile target among the 10 masters. Ghosting his identity is mandatory. It is the only way to navigate the coming chaos without a target. Yoon-sol prowls the city streets, face partially masked by a hat, looking like a completely different person. He hears the local gossip and realizes Dan's disguise was a stroke of genius for staying off radar. He soon reaches the Salvation Squad's outpost, hidden deep within the heart of Ueyang. Silence meets his ring at the door. Sensing something off, Yoon-sol pushes inside the quiet structure anyway. The interior is a massive library. He pauses, questioning if he actually stumbled into a lethal assassin's den. An elderly man emerges from the stacks, eyes narrowing. Yoon-sol plays it cool, claiming he is there to trade. He slides a specific volume across the counter. The old man inspects the cover with a sharp, practiced eye. Tucked in the corner ink is a secret emblem. Recognizing the signal, the old man shifts into protocol. He plays his part perfectly, telling Yoon-sol this worn-out book won't fetch a high price in this shop. Yoon-sol counters, asking for an exchange. The old man summons Ma-woon, ordering his assistant to show the selection. Wearing a mask of innocence, Ma-woon beckons Yoon-so into the private sanctum. The lock clicks shut. Ma-woon's aura shifts instantly, revealing his true predatory authority. In the Salvation Squad, names are dead. Here, you're just a number on a list. You're 18 now, Ma-woon declares, sliding a heavy mission ledger across the table. Pick your poison, he sneers. Yoon-so scans the pages for a real challenge. A 500 silver bounty marked 3rd issue catches his eye. What's the catch? That, Ma-woon scoffs. It's just how many times that contract has been tossed back. 3 previous assassins failed, leaving the mission to rot on the shelf for years. Petty theft and rumors, Yoon-so frowns. This boring stuff won't make him legendary. He doesn't want gold. He craves a brutal clash to forge himself into a god. He keeps digging through the book, hunting for a target that actually tastes like danger. Suddenly, a 9th issue appears with a staggering 3,000 silver nyang reward. The objective? Terminate the Vice Hall, master of the infamous soul-sparing hall. Ma-woon notices the spark in Yoon-so's eyes and immediately tries to shut it down. Know your lane, kid. Our missions are ranked in 4 tiers for a reason. Level 2 is veteran territory reserved for those who've survived 3 years of hell. Level 1. That's strictly for the elite monsters at the very top of the squad. Level 2 is your absolute limit, Ma-woon warns, trying to ground the reckless rookie. The target is a legendary martial titan who's been a nightmare for decades. He's crushed every assassin sent his way. Standard tactics are just a joke to him. That bounty is high because it's a death sentence, yet Yoon-so doesn't flinch. This is the one Yoon-so demands, stunning Ma-woon with his sheer audacity. Danger is irrelevant. Since there's intel on the target, the mission isn't impossible. Ma-woon sighs, disappointed. He saw potential, but now he just sees a dead man walking. Since the kid is hell-bent on suicide, Ma-woon leads him toward the equipment armory. They enter a vault filled with legendary steel and exotic high-tier weaponry. But Ma-woon hands him a rusted, pathetic blade from the bottom of the pile. Yoon-so gets the hint. They won't waste elite gear on a man seeking death. No matter. He'll prove himself by turning this junk into a legendary win. After Yoon-so departs, the elder asks Ma-woon how the secret meeting went down. He picked a level 2 suicide mission, Ma-woon scoffs. We'll never see him again. The old man is stunned. Taking on Xiongzhong is a literal death wish. That monster has buried every elite squad member who ever dared to challenge him. Ma-woon admits he gave him garbage gear to protect the agency's precious resources. Yet the elder feels a flicker of doubt. This kid might be a wild card. The Blood Yin cult, demonic outcasts ruling from an isolated, cursed island fortress. Even demons need supplies, and that's the loophole Yoon-so plans to exploit. Disguised as a lowly laborer, he'll infiltrate the island via the supply fleet. While hauling crates, a cold blade suddenly kisses his throat, a deadly surprise test. Yoon-so plays the terrified amateur, perfectly freezing in a display of sheer panic. The warrior is fooled. No spy could possibly look this weak and pathetic. He sheathes the steel, calling for a doctor to patch up the delivery boy. The medic quickly stitches the shallow cut, while Yoon-so fakes his agony. Nasty scratch, the doctor mutters, but you'll live to see another day. 7 days of healing and the hunt begins. Yoon-so retreats to his cabin. Yoon-so exhales sharply, his heart racing after narrowly dodging detection. His cover remains intact, barely. Mastery over body transformation and Wang's aura camouflage are the only things keeping him alive right now. With the ship set to depart by dawn, ending Sokjong tonight is non-negotiable. Under the cover of darkness, Unseo dons his mask and infiltrates the Blood Yin cult's lair. He glides across rooftops like a ghost weaving through the ink-black shadows. Below, he spots Sok locked in a distant conversation. The raw internal energy radiating from the man is terrifying. He's every bit as lethal as rumors suggested. Strangely, Sok flaunts his power openly despite having survived 9 previous assassination attempts. Sensing a bait, Unseo stays cautious while tailing Sok through a desolate winding corridor. The sharp scent of herbs gives it away. They're heading straight for the medicine storage vault. Hidden deep underground, this soundproof chamber is the perfect place for a quiet execution. Unseo stalks his prey, closing the distance with predatory focus. Suddenly, Sok pauses as if catching a scent, forcing Unseo to melt into the stone walls. Seok steps inside without a second thought. Unseo slips in right behind him, undetected. With Sok's back turned and guard down, Unseo sees the perfect window for a lethal strike. He lunges forward to end it, but his foot clicks against a loose floor tile. Expecting a deadly trap, he recoils only to watch harmless coins scatter across the floor. The silence is broken. Sok turns wearing a cold, mocking smirk. "You're just like the rest," Sok sneers. "Every amateur assassin chooses this exact room for their demise." That's when Unseo notices the jars nearby. They're overflowing with severed human heads. Drawing his blade, Sok's grin widens. He's eager to add Unseo's skull to his gruesome collection. He laughs at Unseo's shock, explaining that every predecessor used these same predictable tactics. They all sneak onto ships and crawl into this storage room hoping for an easy kill. That's why he rigged the place. These traps were designed specifically to catch flies like him. The grim truth hits Unseo. This failure is due to the Salvation Squad's internal secrecy. Because no one shares information, every new recruit walks blindly into the same fatal ambush. They are trapped in a cycle of death, repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Dismissing Unseo as a mere child, Sok decides his favorite blade is too good for this fight. He tosses his primary weapon aside and grabs a basic sword from the wall. "Show me something." He vows to carve Unseo apart piece by piece, savoring every scream of agony. The stealth mission is dead, but Unseo's blood begins to boil. A high-stakes battle is exactly what he craves. He blurs forward, steel clashing against steel. In that split second, Sok's eyes widen in realization. He shoves Unseo back, a newfound respect in his voice. "That internal energy, you're not half bad." Seok realizes this isn't some low-level hitman. This kid's technique is sophisticated and dangerous. Sok lunges with the Black Serpent Blade technique. Unseo watches intensely, tracking every micro-movement. The speed is insane, but the trajectory seems readable. If he stays focused, he can parry the strike. Reality shatters as the blade bites deep into his flesh. How? He was sure he'd blocked it. Sok cackles at his confusion. "Did you really think your pathetic defense could stop my serpent?" Unseo barely blocks the next flurry, leaving his vitals exposed. Why is Sok hesitating to kill him? It clicks. The psycho isn't trying to end it yet, he's playing with his food. Unseo decides to gamble. He'll take the risk to uncover the secret behind Sok's impossible attacks. He unleashes a torrential storm of slashes, but Sok dances through them, countering with lethal grace. Unseo dodges by a hair's breadth, his mind reeling. The sword's path changed mid-air, defying physics. Lightning strikes his brain. It's not magic, it's a masterclass in feints and phantom strikes. Unseo shuts his eyes tight, betting everything on instinct. Sok freezes, realizing the boy finally sees the truth. Seok laughs, thinking Unseol is toast just because his eyes are shut. Little does he know, Unseol is locked in and ready to transcend. By activating the wild beast path, every twitch of Sok's muscles becomes visible. Sok lunges forward, but his target is already gone. Unseol ghosts through the strikes with ease, sending a wave of pure dread through Seok's mind. Desperation kicks in as Seok's attacks turn feral. Yet, Unseol remains unfazed. He is a predator waiting for the perfect moment to unleash the wild beast path's lethal counter. Sok realizes he is outclassed and tries to bail, but Unseol triggers the swift phantom skill. In a heartbeat, the hunter becomes the prey. Sok committed 2 fatal sins today. First, he was too slow to finish the job, giving Unseol time to download his entire fighting style. Second, his massive ego stopped him from drawing his true weapon. Now Sok can only watch in absolute horror as his world crumbles. Unseol's strike shatters Sok's sword like glass. Terrified Sok unleashes a desperate energy blast just to push the monster back. To deny Sok even a second of hope, Unseol resets his stance instantly. Seeing this, Sok realizes he is completely and utterly cooked. Panicking, Sok decides he needs backup from the guards outside immediately. He reaches for his whistle, his only lifeline in this nightmare. But speed is everything. Before Sok can even make a sound, Unseol's blade pierces his heart, ending his life in a cold flash. As the light fades from his eyes, Sok can't believe a master like him was dismantled by a mere nameless assassin. Standing over the cooling corpse, Yoon Seol reflects on the harsh reality of the path. A true master can never afford to drop their guard. Later, the library keeper is vibing when Ma Won storms in, looking like he's seen a ghost. He gasps out the news: Sok is dead. The old man is rattled to his core. The reports confirm this wasn't some sneaky backstab, it was a high-stakes frontal duel. Seok was beaten in a direct clash of power, and his legendary blade was reduced to shards mid-battle. This wasn't just a kill, it was a statement. The librarian is stunned into silence. Sok wielded that sword for 10 years. He wonders what kind of monster could possibly overpower him. Suddenly, Yoon Sol strolls into the library. Before he can utter a single word, they hustle him into the secret inner chamber. They need total privacy for this conversation. Once the doors are locked, the air in the room turns heavy with anticipation. The old man stares Yoon Sol down, asking if he's the one who took Sok's life. Yoon Sol simply gives a sharp, silent nod. The old man is dying for details, but Yoon Seol shuts him down instantly. Just give me the missions and skip the interrogation. Realizing Yoon Sol isn't one for small talk, the man backs off. He acknowledges that the results are the only thing that matters. Fine, he says. I'll keep it professional. Your reward for this legendary hit is 3,000 Niang, cash or check. He hands over the payment and informs Yoon Sol that the next high-level assignment will be ready in exactly 3 days. Yoon Seol pockets the cash but leaves a single bill behind. Confused, the old man asks what the extra tip is for. Buy yourself a drink, Yoon Seol mutters as he walks out. Ma Won absolutely loses it, screaming about Yoon Seol's insane arrogance. He's fuming because Yoon Seol is treating their legendary boss like some low-level shopkeeper just because of his disguise. Instead of getting angry, the old man lets out a booming laugh. He tells Ma Won to assign Yoon Seol the most suicidal missions available. This is the golden ticket. By clearing the impossible, Yoon Seol will skyrocket their branch's reputation and drag them out of the gutter. 6 months fly by, and Yoon Seol is now the branch's undisputed MVP. The old man's face lights up whenever the prodigy appears. Even Ma Won has changed his tune, acting like a total fanboy and praising Yoon Seol for single-handedly carrying their future. Yoon Seol isn't buying the act. He can tell they are being suspiciously nice because they have a massive favor to ask. The old man finally confesses that the top brass has their eyes on him. They've sent a direct command for a special mission. Yoon Seol is all ears until the word protection drops. He immediately turns his back, having zero interest in playing bodyguard. Before he can reach the door, Ma Won lunges for his shirt. He screams that this is a maximum difficulty job with insane pay. You'll earn 10,000 Niang every single day, Ma Won pleads, but Yoon Seol reminds him that he doesn't care about money. Ma Won knows the money isn't working, so he pivots to desperation, begging Yoon Seol to reconsider for the sake of the branch. The librarian adds the final pressure. This is a direct order from the elders. If he refuses, the branch gets shut down for good. Deep down, the old man is practically on his knees praying. Yoon Seol takes the bait to save their skins. He offers a final deal, take the job, and Yoon Seol gets total access to their entire intelligence network and every secret report. That catches Yoon Seol's attention. He stops and asks exactly how long this stream of top-tier intel will last. Indefinitely, the man promises. Yoon Seol finally agrees, but he makes it crystal clear this is a one-time deal only. The moment Yoon Seol leaves, Ma Won explodes at his boss. He asks if he's gone insane for giving away all their secrets. We are a shadow organization, not his personal Google. Ma Won screams, unable to believe the price they just paid. The old man tells him to pipe down. He knows that if this mission succeeds, they finally earn their ticket back to the top. Destination, the Demon Palace. Ma Won's jaw drops as he questions if the old man has truly lost his mind. The elder keeps his cards close, admitting the full mission briefing is currently off limits. However, the VIP is a massive deal. Fast forward, and Yoon So arrives at a high-end eatery for check-in. Inside the luxury restaurant, he meets the client and introduces himself simply as number 18. He announces he is the hired muscle for the protection gig, realizing the client is a refined young lady. Her elderly companion looks absolutely triggered, grumbling that they have already declined extra security a dozen times. The girl ignores his salty attitude, completely offering a polite greeting to her new bodyguard. She introduces herself as Su Ok, pointing out her grumpy uncle, the legendary Wu Munhuang. Yoon So scans them, noting their high-tier vibes and the insane bill they are racking up at this joint. Wu radiates the aura of a master. He roasts Unso, claiming the kid won't even need to lift a finger. He barks that as long as he is guarding Suoke Unso, better just stay out of the way. The old man warns him not to ruin the girl's vacation, leaking a crushing killing intent that Unseo feels instantly. Before the tension peaks, Suoke intervenes, scolding her uncle for being toxic to their new recruit. She checks if Unso is okay, but he just notes that Wu's power level makes a bodyguard redundant. Suoke explains that, since Wu retired from the Murim scene years ago, the Demon Palace is getting nervous. Wu scoffs at the danger, but the gears in Yunso's head finally click. He sees the real problem. The mission makes sense now. Wu hasn't tasted a real battle in decades, making him a liability. His killer instincts have definitely rusted, especially while navigating this unfamiliar, hostile territory. It is Unso's job to cover the old man's blind spots. Suoke then asks about his weird codename. He explains that the Salvation Squad uses numbers to keep their true identities strictly off the grid. She flashes a playful grin, deciding that Mr. 18 will be her official nickname for him. Then she casually asks if he is wearing a mask. Unseo's heart stops. She saw right through his disguise. No one has ever clocked his fake face before. She giggles, claiming her vision is just built different. She noticed his expressions were slightly stiff. Unso realizes Suoke is way more than just a rich girl. She is a high-priority asset for sure. As she babbles about their upcoming boat tour, Unso's senses spike. They are planning a cruise after lunch, but Unso interrupts, sensing a massive disturbance in the atmosphere. He points out the customers nearby have been looping the same scripted dialogue like broken NPCs. The conclusion is terrifying. Every single person in this building is a cold-blooded assassin lying in wait. They are here to delete Suoke. Luckily, their corner table prevents any sneak attacks from the rear. With their backs protected, Unso starts tactical planning, but Wu suddenly pushes him aside. The old man tells him to sit tight and watch a real pro handle this garbage. He is about to prove why he is the only guard. Suoke needs lunging forward before Unso can react. He charges into the center, blowing his cover on purpose. The hidden killers are caught completely off guard. Realizing the jig is up, the assassins drop their axe and swarm him from every direction. The first attacker to reach Wu quickly learns why you do not mess with a Murim legend. Wu delivers a devastating palm strike, sending a shockwave that turns the man's insides into absolute mush. The guy drops dead instantly, the impact blowing back everyone else. Unseo is floored by the raw power. The destructive force of that single strike is insane. Unso realizes the old man is still a beast. The lead assassin shrieks for a full-scale assault, hoping to overwhelm them through sheer numbers. The mob rushes in, but Wu just slams his palm onto the floor, detonating a massive shockwave. The blast shatters their stance. While they are stumbling, Wu begins his surgical counterattack. He mows them down like grass. Suddenly, a stray blade zips towards Suoke, but Yunso intercepts it effortlessly. He bats the steel away, ordering Suoke to stay within his 3-step defense zone. She nods, terrified. A fresh wave of killers lunges at them, but Yunso stands his ground like an immovable wall. After wiping the floor with the remaining goons, Wu strolls back, casually checking if his niece is okay. Seo credits her safety to Unso, but Wu scoffs, claiming the kid did nothing. Rejecting the praise, Wu bristles as Unso coldly asks if he's actually here to protect So. Or is he just flexing his ego? Enraged, Wu snaps, calling Unso a bratty amateur. He claims the boy isn't worth his time, but then the truth hits him hard. Unso had silently neutralized every assassin nearby. Wu begrudgingly admits the kid has some utility. After a stiff compliment, Wu suggests the inn, but Unso immediately shuts it down. He warns that the inn is likely a death trap already crawling with killers. Laying low is their best bet, yet Wu refuses to hide like a coward. He mocks the assassins as mere flies, while the uncle reminds him Seo is the priority. Wu doubles down, insisting his power is enough to handle any situation. He blames his earlier slip on a moment's distraction. Unso then pushes for a disguise. Wu won't budge, fueled by pride. The uncle sighs, realizing Wu's ego is set in stone. He decides to follow Wu's lead anyway as the tension thickens. Unso pulls Seo aside, whispering for her to stay right behind him. He knows the moment they step inside, all hell will break loose. Honestly, he's craving the chaos. They finally reach the gates of the inn. Wu charges in with zero caution, instantly spotting shadows lurking in the corridor. With a lethal smirk, he blitzes the hidden foes, clearing the path in a heartbeat. He turns to Yunso with a smug grin, boasting that he had everything under control. But Yunso's expression remains grim. The nightmare is only just beginning. Suddenly, a sea of assassins pours from the shadows, completely encircling the trio. Looking at the sheer numbers, Unso realizes Seo's life is worth more than he imagined.